Chapter 1882. That's different. We just happened to be lacking divine crystals back then, so we had to use every single one of them to their fullest potential. Naturally, we had to plan carefully and use them sparingly. However, it's different now. We don't lack divine crystals anymore, so we obviously don't need to be as frugal as before. Jianqin smiled. He glanced at Shangguan Mu, and continued. Most importantly, these high-grade divine crystals are all for my wife. No matter how extravagant they are, I don't find them to be a waste. Shen Jian stared at Jianqin in surprise. He acted like he had just met Jianqin. He said, Jianqin, after so many years, I really couldn't tell that you were a person who valued women over friends. You sure have hidden yourself well. Everyone smiled when they heard that. A sliver of awkwardness appeared on Shangguan Mu's face, which was rarely seen. However, there was a sliver of warmth in her eyes. I wonder how Xiao Bao is doing right now and how he's doing on the Tianyuan continent. However, with Xiao Bao's strength, there's probably no one who can bully him in the lower world. Shangguan Mu could not help but think of Shangguan Aojian, who was still on the Tianyuan continent. An undisguised longing appeared in her eyes. Jianqin saw through Shangguan Mu's thoughts. Jianqin stood up and arrived beside her. He gently held her slender hand and said gently, I can already cast down teleportation formations that can cross divine kingdoms now. I believe I'll be able to cast down teleportation formations that can cross worlds before long. Returning home is just around the corner. Shangguan Mu also held Jianqin's hand gently and nodded slowly. She was filled with anticipation for the day she returned home. Not only was her son on the Tianyuan continent, but her father, Hawu, was also there. I hope my father can last until the day I return home. But now that the origin energy of the Tianyuan continent is gradually recovering and it's connected to the world of forsaken saints, reaching the origin realm shouldn't be a problem with my father's talent, Shangguan Mu thought. Her prejudice towards Hawu gradually vanished. Out of all the things he had obtained from the Mo family, he only took a few things that were useful to him from the ancestors' space ring. He either distributed the rest or placed them in the treasury of the Tianyuan clan. After distributing the items, Jianqin had a small gathering with the people of the Tianyuan continent before entering his personal room. This was a secret room, deep underground. Fist-sized luminous pearls were embedded in the walls and ceiling, shining with the gentle light of the saint's world at all times. Jianqin sat in the center of the secret room. He held the spatial saint artifact he had obtained from the ancestor of the Mo family's space ring. In the next moment, Jianqin vanished from the secret room. Only the fist-sized spatial saint artifact that seemed like a divine hall hovered in the air. Jianqin silently appeared in the spatial saint artifact. Over 20 elders of the Mo family sat before him. They were all doing their best to break through Jianqin's seal. All of them were covered in blood, and their faces were pale. They seemed haggard and extremely weak. Beside them, some of the jade bottles used to store pills were already empty and were thrown around chaotically. Don't waste your energy. I carry this spatial saint artifact with me. Even if you break through the seal, you won't be able to change anything. I'll sense it as soon as you break through the seal, Jianqin said indifferently as he stood with his hands behind his back. Clearly, the gods of the Mo family had not sensed Jianqin's arrival. The moment Jianqin's voice rang out, all of them shuddered and snapped open their eyes. However, all of their gazes towards Jianqin were filled with anger and deep resentment. Patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, even if the ancestor has grievances with you, he has already been killed by you. We elders of the Mo family have never offended you, nor have we offended anyone from the Tianyuan family. Why are you trying to kill us all? A god from the Mo family said bitterly. He stared at Jianqin firmly as his resentment became unprecedentedly intense. I think many of you have already guessed the reason. You just refuse to believe it. That's right. I have indeed tried to kill your Mo family for revenge for these mortal women. Eliminating your MO family will save the lives of many mortal women, Jianchen said coldly. His eyes were icy cold. He showed no sympathy towards the gods of the MO family at all. Ha ha ha, mortals are only ants. You're actually trying to kill so many gods for the sake of these ants. Patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Old Man doesn't know whether your actions are chivalrous or foolish. If it were Old Man, he would try to subdue these elders and get them to submit to him so that they can become a great help to the clan. And Old Man laughed aloud as he stared at Genshin with shining eyes. Genshin's face did not change at all. He shook his head gently and said, I don't need to kill innocent people. As he said that, a golden thread silently appeared in Genshin's hand. With a thought, the golden thread wrapped around all the elders before dragging them to another location. There was a small village on the other side of the Spatial Saint artifact. All the mortal women the MO family had captured lived there, relying on farming to make a living. When Jianchen dragged the gods bound by the primordial god silk to the village, all the people there were stunned. Many pregnant women walked out with their big bellies and stared at Jianchen's group curiously. These women were all born on a Yin day and month. They were not very old, and there were even a few girls who did not even seem to be 10 years old. Clearly, they were the people who had been captured recently. Men, on the other hand, only made up 20% of these women. The purpose of their existence was self-evident. Who are you? At this moment, a burly man stepped forward. He stared at Jianchen's group cautiously. Jianchen explained the situation to all the people trapped there. When the women learnt that they had been captured and that only death awaited them in the end, all of them fell silent. Sorrow filled their eyes. Some of them had only been captured after they had reached adulthood, so they knew about the outside world. There were also some people who had been captured when they were infants. They had only heard about the outside world, but they had never seen it with their own eyes. We thought that when the child was born, we would be able to leave this place and return home. But we didn't expect that the reality would be so cruel. A woman cried bitterly. She was filled with grief. Don't worry. I've already destroyed the MO family. These people are elders of the MO family. If you want revenge, this is your chance. Jianchen tossed out the startling rainbow sword. It directly stabbed into the ground before the women. Chapter 1883. Looking at the startling rainbow sword on the ground and thinking about revenge, the mortal women gathered there immediately paled in fright. Many of them felt like their limbs had become weak. They lived in peace with the world. It was rare for them to even see blood, let alone kill people. As a matter of fact, they all felt fear when they thought about killing people. They stood there silently for a very long time. In the end, an older woman finally walked over with eyes filled with hatred. She pulled out the startling rainbow sword with both hands and arrived before a god from the MO family. She said through gritted teeth, "You're far too cruel. You've kept so many of us here just to kill us when our children are born. Originally, I thought that all the sisters who left here in the past few years had their own lives and could go to the outside world to live the lives they wanted. I never thought that what awaited them would be such a cruel end. You deserve to die. You're just mortals. You're mere ants. Even if you wield weapons, you won't be able to harm us at all." A god from the MO family stared at the woman in disdain. He acted like he was above everyone else. The woman was sorrowful. She roared out furiously and directly stabbed the god with the startling rainbow sword with both hands. The god's eyes were filled with mockery. He knew that the startling rainbow sword was a high-quality saint artifact. It was extremely powerful, but the person wielding the high-quality saint artifact was only a mortal. Let alone unleashing the power of the high-quality saint artifact, she could not even pierce through their bodies. This was because mortals did not possess such great power. However, the outcome surprised him. When the startling rainbow sword stabbed him, a powerful strand of sword chi appeared. Before the strand of sword chi, His body that was as tough as a god's became as fragile as tofu, easily pierced by the startling rainbow sword. The woman who wielded the startling rainbow sword did not even feel any obstruction at all. The sword stabbed into the god's chest, and the tip of the sword emerged from his back, dripping with blood. The celestial turned his head with difficulty to look at Jianqin behind him. He opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but he simply didn't have the strength to speak. The light in his eyes rapidly faded away, becoming hollow. His body fell straight to the ground. When the startling rainbow sword pierced through his body, a strand of sword chi surged into his head, wiping out his soul. The death of this god made the other Tian serpents of the Mo family pale. Their eyes were filled with despair. They naturally knew that the person who had killed this heavenly god was not this mortal woman, but Jianqin. If not for Jianqin's secret help, with their mortal strength, not to mention being unable to get close to the startling rainbow sword, they wouldn't even be able to lift the sword's weight. Although the startling rainbow sword was only 3 fingers wide and 4 feet long, its weight was no less than several tens of thousands of pounds. Afterwards, the remaining gods of the Mo family were no exception. They were all stabbed to death by the women with the startling rainbow sword. All of their souls were wiped out, and even their souls were unable to escape. After dealing with the matters here, Jianqin released everyone from the artifact space. He took out some low-grade divine crystals from the space rings of the gods of the Mo family and settled them down in the provincial city. He also informed a few people in the clan to secretly take care of them so that they could live out the rest of their lives peacefully. 3 days later, Jianqin bid farewell to everyone. He got Xin Jian to continue watching over the Tianyuan family as he left the provincial city alone. He arrived in the divine kingdom of Qingyang through the teleportation formation in the clan and directly made his way to the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair. The Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair was located at the border between the divine kingdom of Qingyang and the divine kingdom of Datian. It was an extremely huge mountain range. As the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair were enveloped by a thick, 7-colored miasma that never dispersed, and there were many poisonous items that lived there, very few people set foot in the mountain range. Even though there were a few valuable heavenly resources there, very few people dared to take the risk. This was because the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair had another name in this region, which was the Tomb of Gods. The reason why it was called the Tomb of Gods was because even someone as powerful as the Divine King could die in the depths of the mountains. The miasma there was just too powerful. Not only could it corrode the body, but it could even corrupt the soul. Today, a young man who seemed to be in his 20s had arrived at the foot of the deathly silent Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair. The young man was handsome, his hair draped over his shoulders, and his eyes were filled with many different emotions. They would be plain at times, as deep as ink at other times, and even as sharp as swords at other times. He gave off a pressuring presence. His face was filled with determination that did not match his age. He took small steps and made his way towards the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair with firm steps. Although he did not move quickly, he crossed an extremely great distance with each step. In just a few steps, he had appeared several kilometers away, and he was directly submerged in the miasma. The miasma really is powerful. I feel rather uncomfortable as soon as I've entered the miasma. Jianqin frowned slightly as he stood in the miasma. He discovered that the miasma was even more powerful than he had imagined it to be. This is only the outermost area, where the miasma is the thinnest. If deities come in here, it'll be very difficult for them to last 10 seconds. The miasma 100 meters away can kill gods in 10 seconds. It really is worthy of being the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair that can kill the Divine King. It really is powerful, Jianqin murmured to himself. The chaotic force within him circulated as he pushed the defenses of the chaotic body to the limits. He made his way towards the depths of the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair with firm steps. The miasma could cut off the senses of the soul. Not only was Jianshin's vision affected within the miasma, but he could only see things within 1,000 meters. Even the senses of the soul were affected, only able to cover a range of 10 kilometers. Moreover, the miasma could even erode the senses of the soul. Every time Jianshin expanded the senses of the soul, he could not maintain it for too long. He had to withdraw it within 5 seconds. Poisonous creatures littered the Een Mountains of Seven's despair. Not only was every blade of grass and tree poisonous, but there were also many creatures that were poisonous as well. As Jianshin ventured deeper, the miasma became denser and denser. The poisonous creatures in the surroundings became older and more powerful as well. Not only did the poisonous creatures include various magical beasts that had reached godhood, but there were also many different types of plants. These plants had all existed for an extremely long time. Some of them had gradually developed intelligence and possessed extraordinary abilities. If gods faced them, they would definitely die. Suddenly, a 10-meter-wide, multicolored flower erupted from the ground beneath Jianshin's feet. Every petal was filled with dense venom. They closed together with lightning speed, swallowing Jianshin in a single moment. Fast. It was just too fast. Jianshin was unable to dodge in time. Chapter 1884. However, the flower began to tremble unnaturally soon after it swallowed Jianshin. Its huge petals rapidly became covered in cracks as dark green venom leaked out from the cracks. Squeak, squeak, squeak! The flower produced a strange sound as if it was groaning in pain. The huge flower around Jianshin trembled violently before it began to struggle violently. Dark green venom sprayed out like a fountain. That huge flower also fiercely smashed into the ground as it struggled in pain. It smashed a huge hole in the ground, causing the earth to shake and the mountains to shake. Boom! Suddenly, a thunderous boom rang out. At this moment, the entire body of the 7-colored, demonic flower suddenly exploded into pieces. Dark green poison splashed all over the sky, containing an extremely strong poison. The venom was even enough to pose a serious threat to overgods. With the explosion of the flower, Jianshin reappeared. He was protected by the light of the sword as he shone like the sun. Powerful sword intent permeated the surroundings, and it actually thinned the 7-colored miasma slightly. It was forcefully repelled by Jianshin. With Jianshin's current battle prowess, it was difficult for him to find an opponent among overgods. As long as he did not venture into the depths of the mountains, there really were not a lot of people who could pose a threat to him. This flower has actually reached the level of an early overgod, and it's skilled in sneak attacks. Under the cover of this natural barrier, it's impossible to defend against. Even mid-overgods will suffer greatly if they encounter it, even if they don't die. The light around Jianshin slowly dispersed. He stared at the shattered remains of the flower calmly as the light in his eyes flickered. At this moment, a powerful pulse of energy attracted Jianshin's attention. Jianshin made his way over. With a wave of his hand, a powerful gust of wind struck the ground, blowing away the remnants of the flower. Immediately, a fist-sized, dark green orb appeared before Jianshin. Pure and powerful energy circulated within it. It was extremely active. Jianshin's eyes immediately narrowed when he saw the orb. He said, "Is this the flower's plant core?" A strange light flickered through Jianshin's eyes. With a wave of his hand, the plant core flew into his hand. The moment the plant core entered his hand, Jianshin frowned. He felt pain spread from his hand. His hand that held the plant core rapidly turned black as his flesh was being eaten away by the potent venom of the plant core. What a potent venom! Jianshin could not help but sigh in amazement. He circulated his chaotic force and expelled the venom from his hand. Even his corroded hand recovered rapidly. In just a few seconds, it had returned to its original state. Now that he circulated his chaotic force, the venom within the plant core was unable to harm Jianshin at all. The light in Jianshin's eyes flickered as he stared at the plant core in his hand with interest. He murmured, "The plant strength is equivalent to an early overgod, and the plant core basically contains the essence of all the plant's energy. If I can remove the venom—" Jianshin's eyes began to shine as he glanced around. His gaze landed on the plants in the surroundings. A while later, Jianshin stowed the plant core away and continued on his way. He had thought about immediately refining the energy within the plant core and cultivating. After all, it was the plant core of an early overgod. The energy within it was so terrifying that it could not be compared to 10,000-year god origin pills. However, he was only a god right now. His chaotic force could fend off the plant's venom, but he was unable to refine it. As for his comprehension of the laws of the sword as a late overgod, that was only the comprehension of laws. It would not be of any help to refine the venom within the plant core. Therefore, he had no choice but to keep this highly toxic monster core for the time being. However, unbeknownst to Jianshin, the moment he killed the plant core, a tremendous presence slowly awakened in a huge cave in the depths of the 7 Despair Mountains. With the awakening of the presence, the entire mountain range shook violently. All the magical beasts bowed down as they trembled. Their eyes were filled with fear. One of this king's avatars was killed by an outsider. An extremely powerful thought wave spread in the cave, turning into a roar filled with anger. The ground of the cave trembled violently, and a huge 7-colored flower slowly broke out of the ground. The flower was exactly the same as the 7-colored flower that Jianshin had killed. The only difference was the difference in size. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. The 7-colored flower he had destroyed before was only 10 meters tall, but the demonic flower here was at least 100 zhang tall. Calm down. You can't disobey the 9th Prince's orders unless the outsider has intruded on our territory. Otherwise, it's best if we don't do anything. It'll be bad if the 9th Prince learns about this, an old voice rang out. A huge face appeared out of nowhere. Its wrinkles were compressed together, making it seem extremely ancient. Moreover, the face was illusionary. Clearly, it had been conjured from a sliver of the power of the soul. The 300-meter-tall, 7-colored, demonic flower exuded an intense, killing intent as it grew colder and colder. However, in the end, it still didn't step out of the cave. It only sent out a cold thought. "Outsider, this king shall wait for you here. I hope you won't disappoint this king." Basically, all outsiders know that the depths of the mountain range are forbidden. Although the outsider's strength is impressive, he might not be bold enough to venture so far. "Qizong, you need to think of a way to get out. Only then will you have a chance at avenging your clone," said the old voice. Jianshin rapidly ventured deeper into the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair. He had already arrived in the central region. The miasma there was so powerful that it had reached an extremely terrifying level. Even late overgods would not be able to last for more than 4 hours here. Only Jianshin could stand there and scathed with the toughness of his chaotic body and the light from his sword. He did not fear the miasma. However, his vision had already shrunk from 1,000 meters away to 500 meters. Jianshin rarely used the senses of his soul anymore. The miasma was just too powerful. As soon as he released the senses of his soul, the miasma would invade his body rapidly. In just a few seconds, he would become dizzy. I've killed many plants that have become demons along the way. I've even killed quite a few poisonous beasts. It's a pity that I haven't obtained a lot of monster cores. I don't know why, but not all plants that turn into monsters can produce monster cores. On the other hand, almost every poisonous beast has a monster core in its body. Among the demons and poisonous beasts I've killed, there were a total of 9 that were overgods. Aside from the 3 poisonous beasts, the other 6 were all plants that had become demons. The 6 overgod demons only had 3 monster cores. Jianshin calculated inside. Although he did not find any heavenly resources that could heal the soul along the way, he had benefited quite a lot. Chapter 1885. With a flip of his hand, Genshin took out the 3 monster cores from his space ring. The 3 monster cores were the same size as the monster core. In terms of appearance, they did not seem too different from the monster core. They were all dark green and extremely poisonous. These were 3 monster cores on the level of over-gods. They were also the monster cores of the highest grade that Genshin had ever seen in his life. However, Genshin felt extremely helpless when he looked at the 3 extremely high-grade monster cores in his hand. He felt indescribable bitterness. After reaching the 10th layer of his chaotic body, he had ingested the Golden Ginseng King and many extremely high-grade heavenly resources he had found in the Divine King's space ring, as well as several dozen 10,000-year god origin pills. These things had allowed his chaotic Niden to grow by quite a lot. He was not far away from the 11th layer now. Perhaps he only needed to refine the 3 monster cores, and it would be enough for him to successfully break through to the 11th layer. Even if the 3 monster cores were not enough, he still had a few monster cores on hand. It would not be a problem for him to reach the 11th layer. However, what made Genshin feel extremely helpless was that both the monster cores and monster cores were extremely poisonous. They had exceeded the range that his chaotic force could refine. As a result, he had the resources that could allow him to reach the 11th layer of the chaotic body, but he just happened to be unable to use them. This made him feel extremely conflicted. I'll probably need a Divine King to refine the poison in the monster cores and monster cores. Genshin sighed gently. He dismissed his thoughts and continued on his way. He had not come to the Een Mountains of Seven's despair for the monster cores and monster cores. Instead, he was looking for heavenly resources that could heal the soul. He had discovered many heavenly resources along the way, but unfortunately they had all been corroded by the miasma and mutated. They were filled with poison and were only harmful. Genshin had yet to discover any heavenly resources that could heal the soul. After another few dozen kilometers, Genshin's eyes suddenly narrowed. A white flower bloomed 100 meters in front of him. It was only the size of a palm, and it pulsed with misty light. It was enveloped by a layer of pure white light. Even though the poisonous miasma permeated the surroundings, it was unable to penetrate the layer of white light, allowing the white flower to grow in the Een Mountains of Seven's despair. This is the white jade spirit platform flower. Genshin's eyes lit up with excitement. The white jade spirit platform flower was one of the heavenly resources that could heal injuries to the soul. It was of the same grade as the soul-drawing lotus. They were both extremely rare and high-grade heavenly resources. At this moment, a loud roar of a beast was heard. The entire earth shook violently. A 6-meter-tall magical beast was running over from afar. It looked like a pig and was very fat. However, there was a pair of wings on its back. As it was just too heavy, its short wings were clearly unable to carry it through the air. However, the presence it gave off was so powerful that it caused the mountains to fall silent temporarily. It even made Genshin frown. A late over-god magical beast. Genshin remained as still as a mountain. This was the most powerful existence he had come across since he had entered the Een Mountains of Seven's despair, but he showed no fear. The magical beast ran over with lightning speed from afar and blocked the white jade spirit platform flower with its fat body. It looked at Genshin furiously and directly roared out with its huge mouth. At the same time, it spat out a stream of dark green venom. It shot towards Genshin like an arrow. Daluo sword. At the same time, Genshin struck out as well. He directly used the Daluo sword chi in an attempt to end the battle quickly. The golden Daluo sword of sword chi was unstoppable. It directly dispersed the venom from the wild boar and landed on the huge head of the venomous beast viciously with sword chi that filled the sky. Immediately, green blood that contained potent poison splashed out. A deep wound appeared on the poison beast's enormous head. Its enormous body was also sent flying backwards, violently smashing into the ground, causing the earth to shake and the mountains to shake. Jianchen was protected by the light of the sword as he shone with endless white light. He took a step forward with the startling rainbow sword, crossing 100 meters in a single instance and appearing beside the white jade spirit platform flower. He directly plucked the flower and stored it away carefully. The magical beast that seemed like a wild boar became furious after Jianchen plucked the flower away. It roared out furiously as its eyes became blood red. It charged towards Jianchen madly, smashing through all the towering trees along the way with its mountainous body. At that moment, powerful pulses of energy radiated from the pair of tiny wings on its back. They seemed to have turned into two blades, and with a flash they slashed towards Jianchen with lightning-like speed. Jianchen was emotionless. His eyes were cold as he swung out with the startling rainbow sword. The resplendent light from the sword forced the miasma in the surroundings to retreat, while the intense white light illuminated the entire forest. Boom! With a loud boom, the startling rainbow sword collided with the blade formed from the poisonous beast's wings. A loud boom rang out as the powerful energy collided. It turned into an energy storm that swept out in all directions, causing the earth to be uprooted and the surrounding vegetation to shatter. The 7-colored poison miasma that filled the area churned violently. After the strike, Jianchen remained where he was like a mountain. The startling rainbow sword shone resplendently. It was enveloped by a layer of light, making it impossible to see the sword clearly. As for that 20 feet tall, enormous poisonous beast, it let out a miserable shriek. It was filled with pain. The pair of short wings on its back had already been cut off, and green blood had dyed its entire body. It was struggling in pain. Spurt! It was also at this moment that Jianchen stabbed out with the startling rainbow sword. With a flash, it directly entered the magical beast's head, wiping out its soul. The magical beast immediately collapsed limply. It had completely lost all signs of life. Even its monster core had been taken away by Jianchen. The startling rainbow sword vanished from Jianchen's hand. Jianchen looked at the white jade spirit altar flower in his space ring and finally smiled faintly. I finally found a heavenly resource that can heal the soul. I just wonder if this white jade spirit altar flower will be able to awaken Kea. To be safe, I'll find a few more, Jianchen thought to himself. He was confident that with his strength, there were very few creatures that could threaten him as long as he did not venture into the depths of the Yin Mountains of Seven's despair. Suddenly, a unique fragrance wafted over. Jianchen only took a whiff of it, and he immediately felt his soul shudder violently. He felt like the power of his soul that he had depleted in the Yin Mountains of Seven's despair had been completely replenished at that moment, and it had become even more consolidated and powerful. Of course, this was only an illusion he had after taking in a whiff of the fragrance. Even though that was the case, it was enough to make Jianchen's eyes light up. His soul was so powerful right now that just a whiff of the fragrance was enough to make him feel like this. He immediately determined that the heavenly resource that gave off the fragrance was of a terrifying grade. Chapter 1886. The source of the fragrance should still be quite far away from me. It's a pity that my vision and the senses of my soul have been affected by the miasma of 7 despair, so I can't see just how far away the heavenly resource is. I can only use the fragrance to determine its direction right now. Jianchen stared in the direction of the fragrance and immediately hurried over. Jianchen moved like a ghost, silently advancing through the miasma. He vanished in a flash and moved extremely quickly. Along the way, they naturally encountered many dangers. If they didn't encounter some powerful poisonous beasts, they would be entangled by plants that had turned into demons. However, with Jianchen's current strength, basically nothing could threaten him as long as he did not come across a divine king. Naturally, he dealt with them easily, allowing him to obtain 2 more overgod monster cores and an overgod monster core. Now, Jianqin possessed 9 over-god monster cores and monster cores. This was an extremely great harvest to him. It had completely surpassed the high-grade divine crystals he obtained from killing over-gods outside. If it were not for the fact that the over-god monster cores and monster cores were extremely poisonous, any single one of them would be worth several dozen blocks of high-grade divine crystals at the very least. When Jianqin traveled 100 kilometers along with the fragrance, he suddenly stopped. He frowned as he stared at the miasma up ahead. He had already sensed that something was off. What kind of heavenly resource is this? The fragrance it gives off can travel so far in the special environment of the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair. I've traveled 100 kilometers, yet I still haven't seen the true appearance of the heavenly resource, Jianqin thought. The light in his eyes flickered as he became surprised and doubtful. For a moment, he did not continue onwards. Logically speaking, the fragrance from any heavenly resource should be affected by the miasma in a place like the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair. However, the fragrance that I've smelled has actually drifted to an area of 100 miles. Is someone doing this on purpose, using this method to lure me in? Or is this heavenly treasure of a terrifyingly high grade that has already surpassed the 9th grade of the immortal grade and reached the legendary divine grade? Jianqin's heart began to beat uncontrollably as soon as he thought about how it was extremely likely to be a god-tier heavenly resource. However, he calmed down very soon. He stared ahead and became hesitant. He murmured to himself, "If I continue onwards, I'll be in the very depths of the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair. That's the most terrifying place in the mountains. It's said that even divine king realm experts can die there." Jianqin was conceited, but he was not arrogant. He could move about freely in the central region of the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair, but he was extremely fearful of the very depths. He was unwilling to set foot there so easily. Even the divine king could die there. As a mere over-god, he was an ant-like figure before the divine king. If he encountered such terrifying danger, he would definitely die. However, the fragrance from there was indeed very tempting to Jianqin. It was a fatal temptation, almost making his blood boil. This was because it was a 9th grade immortal tier heavenly resource at the very least. It might even be a god tier heavenly resource. It was extremely rare. Fortune comes from danger. Such a high-grade heavenly resource is enough for me to take the risk. Moreover, I have a god artifact to protect me. With the toughness of my chaotic body, I should be able to retreat even if I come across any danger. In the end, Jianqin made up his mind. He took out the god artifact from his space ring and put it on. Afterwards, he continued onwards, entering the very depths of the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair. The ancestor of the Mo family had completely repaired the outer appearance of the god artifact. The god artifact wrapped around Jianqin's entire body, only leaving his eyes exposed. Furthermore, even his eyes were protected by a layer of thin film. With its protective power, it was truly airtight. Jianqin became cautious after entering the very depths of the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair. He advanced carefully as he paid close attention to the movements in the surroundings. He was extremely cautious. He could not afford to be careless at all with his current location. Even the Divine King could die here. As long as he was even slightly careless, it was possible for him to be doomed. After entering the very depths, the sounds of birds, beasts, and insects have all vanished. The surroundings are silent. All of this indicates that the very depths of the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair are extremely dangerous and terrifying. It's so terrifying that even the over-god level poisonous beasts outside are afraid to set foot here. A gleam of light flickered through Jianqin's eyes. He sniffed in the direction of the fragrance as he advanced cautiously. After advancing for a few more kilometers, a huge cave appeared before Jianqin's eyes. The cave was gloomy, having been affected by the miasma. Even with Jianqin's eyesight, he was unable to see through the darkness. However, the fragrance that had drifted over 100 kilometers away originated from the cave. Jianqin erased his presence. Under the protection of the god artifact, he approached the cave carefully. However, just when Jianqin had made it halfway, he suddenly came to a halt. He felt the presence of death rapidly envelop him. His entire body seemed to become abnormally cold at that moment. Even his blood seemed to stop flowing. Jianqin reacted extremely quickly. He immediately retreated as quickly as he could. At the same time, he formed a seal with his hand and used the linear lightning release without any hesitation in an attempt to flee. At the same time, a thick vine burst out of the ground where Jianqin had been standing. It basically brushed past Jianqin's chest and shot into the sky with a powerful pulse of energy. It had almost struck Jianqin. The Divine King! Jianqin shivered inside. Before he could think any further, he had already completed his seal. He was enveloped by a layer of powerful light, and he turned into a bolt of lightning, fleeing outside decisively. You want to leave? Not so easy. Stay here for me. A powerful mental pulse shook up the forest. It was filled with fury and extremely heavy killing intent. With that, the ground cracked. Huge vines emerged from the ground one after another. Every single vine pulsed with terrifying energy. The energy was so powerful that it caused the surrounding space to tremble. The 7-colored miasma in the surroundings retreated. It possessed devastating power. Swish, 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 the vines shot out together. As if they had broken through space and the limits of distance, they covered 1,000 kilometers in a single instance. They shot off into the distance in an instant, chasing after Jianqin, who had fled as a bolt of lightning. However, even though the vines were extremely fast, Jianqin's linear lightning release was even faster. The distance between them rapidly widened. Duo T, stop him. Seeing that he couldn't catch up to it, the wave of consciousness spread out again, directly spreading to another cave not far away. Qizong, remember that you owe me a favor. A rough and heavy voice rang out from the cave. With that, Jianqin suddenly felt his body tighten. The space around him had actually frozen at that moment, as if it had become a cage, trapping him firmly inside. Even moving a finger was abnormally difficult. Profound sword chi. With a thought, a finger-sized strand of sword chi appeared above Jianqin's head. It radiated with surging sword intent. It was extremely shocking. Boom! The profound sword chi directly struck the frozen space, causing the space there to violently tremble. The prison formed by the frozen space shattered with a bang. This outsider is quite capable. From the second cave, a soft exclamation of surprise could be heard. With that delay, the thick vines had already caught up. They wrapped around Jianqin, trapping him like a dumpling. Jianqin's heart sank. He sent out a second strand of profound sword chi, directly shooting it at the vines that trapped him. However, the vines were unimaginably powerful. The second strand of profound sword chi only managed to cut through 2 vines. Not only did it fail to cut through all the vines around him, but it even attracted even more vines to wrap around him. Chapter 1887. More and more vines appeared around Jianqin, and they became tighter and tighter. In the end, every single vine seemed to have become an extremely tough piece of metal, thousands of times tougher than steel. They wrapped around Jianqin firmly with terrifying power, as if they wanted to rip Jianqin to pieces. Jianqin was unable to move at all. The vines were extremely powerful. No matter how hard he tried, no matter what he did, he was unable to break free. Right now, he only possessed the strength of a peak over God, but he could not even move a finger. This was because he was facing a peak Divine King. Moreover, he could sense that the Divine King he faced was much more powerful than the Grand Imperial Protector of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. Creak, creak! The rapidly tightening vines rubbed against the god artifact on him, producing ear-piercing sounds. If it were not for the protection of the god artifact, Jianqin probably would have been directly cut to pieces by the vines. I never thought that this outsider would actually wear a god artifact. That's something that even some infinite primes don't possess. It's just a pity that the god artifact is damaged. It's not perfect. Within the second cave, that deep and rough voice sounded out once more, and it carried a strong sense of interest. Qizong, you have no use for the god artifact. The person is yours, and the god artifact is mine. You can treat it as returning the favor you owe me. With that, an extremely burly, bare-chested, bald man walked out from the second cave. The man's appearance was nothing special. His appearance was extremely ordinary. The only thing that stood out about him was the imprint on his forehead. The imprint radiated with the power of laws. It seemed to disturb space, causing the space around him to pulse gently. It was as if the space there was under his control. You can have the god artifact, but you can't let him escape. Qizong sent out a mental pulse. Don't worry, this space is under my control. No matter how fast he is, he won't be able to escape from my grasp, the large man said confidently. The vines binding Jianqin suddenly loosened, allowing Jianqin to regain his ability to move. However, the vines did not retreat. Instead, they spread out in all directions, forming a huge prison that trapped Jianqin inside, preventing him from escaping. The bald man also stood in the cage formed by the vines. He stared at Jianqin's god artifact with shining eyes as he drooled. Having regained his mobility, Jianqin knew that it would be very difficult for him to escape, but he would not just sit there and do nothing. He took out several soul recovery pills and swallowed them as quickly as he could, recovering the power of his soul that he had expended after using the 2 strands of profound sword qi. At the same time, he formed a sword seal and fought with his full strength. The Daluo sword. Tai sword technique. Jianqin basically used 2 streaks of light at the same time, one golden and one white. They shot towards the bald man with surging sword qi. The bald man stood there with his arms crossed as he stared at Jianqin with a sneer. He directly ignored the 2 strands of sword qi from Jianqin. The 2 strands of sword qi were indeed very powerful, enough to pose a great threat to late overgods. However, in the eyes of the bald man who had already reached the level of divine king, the 2 strands of sword qi were just too weak. However, to his surprise, before Jianqin's 2 strands of sword qi could approach the bald man, they collided and produced a great boom. Powerful ripples of energy wreaked havoc in the surroundings with the scattered strands of sword qi, turning into an extremely terrifying storm. It rampaged through the prison, formed from countless vines. However, the vines were extremely sturdy. This level of energy was only enough to make overgods pale. It was nothing to divine king experts. The storm of energy was firmly locked down by the prison formed from the vines. Jianqin did not intend to use the storm of energy to break out of the prison. The moment the energy erupted, a teleportation formation disk appeared in his hand. He used the disguise of the storm of energy to activate the teleportation formation disk as quickly as he could. You're just a mere overgod. If I really let you escape from me, I won't be able to face anyone in the future. Freeze! The bald man smiled mockingly. As he said that, Jianqin immediately became immobilized. The space around him suddenly froze. It was not just his body. Even the terrifying storm formed by the powerful energy shockwaves from the collision of the 2 sword qis froze at the same time. Jianqin's heart sank. He looked at the bald man. The bald man's control over space had reached such a level of power. Just a simple freezing of space was something that Jianqin could not break through no matter how hard he tried. To think that a divine king realm expert is so terrifying. Jianqin's heart sank. This was the first time he had clashed with a divine king expert. He discovered that he was unable to fight back at all. This god artifact is mine. Duo Ti's burly body appeared before Genshin like he had teleported. He removed the god artifact from Genshin's body. As Genshin was unable to refine the god artifact, he could only wear it. As a result, Duo T was able to take it from Genshin easily. He flipped through it admiringly as he smiled from ear to ear. He was extremely happy. Qizong, I'll leave this outsider to you. Duo T directly left after taking the god artifact. Even though space had recovered, Genshin was bound by thick vines again. The ground began to tremble violently. As thick cracks rapidly spread out, a 7-colored flower that was over 100 feet in size slowly broke out of the ground. It emitted a dazzling 7-colored light, which was very enchanting. So, it's actually a demonic flower that's binding me. Genshin's eyes narrowed when he saw the flower. He had seen it before. He had killed one when he first entered the Een Mountains of Seven's Despair. Aside from size and strength, they were basically identical in appearance. The vines that wrapped around his body were the countless roots of the flower. Outsider, you killed this king's clone. This king will suck away all of your blood essence, devour your body, and torture your Yuan spirit, making you wish you were dead. I will take revenge for this king's clone. The giant demonic flower seemed to be unable to speak. It emitted a thought wave filled with anger. Since Genshin had lost the protection of his armor, the tendrils that bound his body had already dug deep into his flesh. Blood flowed out from his wounds. His blood was being absorbed by the roots. Right now, Genshin was facing a true life-threatening crisis. At the same time, Keia's eyelashes actually trembled gently as he lay in the crystal coffin within Genshin's space ring. He seemed to want to open his eyes as much as he could. The 7-colored, heaven-devouring beast on the crystal coffin seemed to sense something. Its tiny eyes suddenly snapped open, and it stared at Kaia without blinking. Its intelligent eyes were filled with doubt, but there was also some eagerness. Unfortunately, Keia's eyelashes only trembled slightly before he stopped reacting. Outside, Genshin remained composed even though his life was in danger. He stared at the huge flower calmly and said, "So that's how it is. The flower I killed before was actually your clone. However, it won't be that easy to kill me." With that, 2 streaks of light, one violet and one azure, shot into the sky from Genshin. They were dazzling, piercing through the 7-colored miasma and reaching the 9 heavens. They turned into 2 swords that stood in the sky, causing the surroundings to pale in comparison. Dual sword fusion. Genshin bellowed out. His voice seemed to possess a boundless charm, reverberating through the entire mountain range, piercing through rock and metal. His left eye had actually become completely azure, while his right eye had become completely violet. They shone with an enchanting light. Chapter 1888. Even if the chances of survival are less than 10%, there's still a sliver of hope. However, if I don't do this, I'll be dead for sure. The strength displayed by the Divine King's Orchid has completely exceeded the Grand Imperial Protector of the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. With my current strength, I can only rely on the fusion of the 2 swords to fight for a chance of survival. Moreover, even if I die after using the fusion of the 2 swords, the Orchid won't have it easy either. It'll definitely pay a heavy price, Genshin communicated with the senses of his soul. His gaze was determined. He had run out of options now. The Orchid was so powerful that even if he used the profound sword chi, it would not be able to threaten it. This was because the difference in strength between the 2 of them was just too great. If the 2 swords fuse, the Orchid will die for sure, but Master, the sword spirit side. The 2 strands of sword chi appeared above Genshin's head. They tore through the miasma and stabbed into the sky, radiating with devastating power. Moreover, the 2 strands of sword chi gradually approached each other under Genshin's control. They were about to fuse together. Immediately, as the 2 strands of sword chi rapidly approached each other, a terrifying, devastating pressure gradually began to brew. It became more and more powerful, throwing the surroundings into chaos. It caused the entire region of space to tremble violently. This pressure was simply too powerful. In front of it, it was as if even the heavens and earth were trembling in fear. What is this? Qizong used its roots to bind Jianqin tightly. In its eyes, Jianqin was as weak as an ant. He would not be able to withstand a single blow. However, at this moment, the terrifying, devastating presence from Jianqin made it tremble uncontrollably. An unprecedented fear silently filled its entire body. The reason for that was because it smelled the aura of death. That aura was so close to it. God damn it, what secret technique is this? It's actually so terrifying that even I feel chills down my spine. The bald man who had taken away Jianqin's armor walked out of the cave again. His eyes were wide open as he stared at Jianqin in disbelief. They were filled with shock. This outsider is using a devastating secret technique. Qizong, what are you hesitating for? Kill him quickly. Don't let him finish charging up his secret technique. In the distance, a huge old tree that was thousands of feet tall quickly walked over using its roots. An old face appeared on the thick trunk. The wrinkles on the face had already been squeezed together, and it had a grave expression. The old tree that had become a demon was a divine king. Just like Qizong, it was no regular divine king. It was much more powerful than the Grand Imperial Protector of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. The appearance of the tree caused Jianqin's eyes to narrow. He had never thought that there would actually be 3 god kings hidden in the depths of the mountains. Qizong, hurry up and kill him. However, this was not the end. There were far more than 3 divine king experts hidden in the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair. After the old tree, a few more figures emerged from the miasma. Their presences surged, making them extremely shocking. 8 divine king experts. With that, even Jianqin became stunned. There were actually 8 divine king experts hidden in the tiny Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair. At this moment, a roar rang out, and a terrifyingly long python that was only as thick as a bowl emerged from the miasma. It also stared at Jianqin sternly with its small eyes. On the back of this extremely slender python, there were 2 threads, 1 gold and 1 silver, that extended from head to tail. A golden-striped silver snake. Jianqin's heart shuddered. He immediately recognized the small snake that was only as thick as a bowl but several thousand meters long. It was a member of the same clan as the newbies, the golden-striped silver snake. The golden-striped silver snake had also reached the divine king level. There are 9 divine king experts. Jianqin felt bitter inside. Only now did he understand just what kind of place he had come to. There was actually a nest of divine king experts hidden here. All of them were experts of the poison domain. In the next moment, Jianqin roared out at the sky. He shone with intense violet light as he used all his strength to fuse the 2 swords. With his current strength, he was unable to fuse the 2 swords in a single moment. He needed some time to charge up. However, right now, Jianqin basically wanted to be able to fuse the 2 swords in a single moment. Blood had already oozed from the corner of his lips. The fusion of the 2 swords was just too terrifying. Before the fusion was complete, he had already suffered from the backlash. Even if I die here today, I'll drag a few of you down with me. Jianqin was already prepared to die. At the same time, Qizong attacked Jianqin as hard as he could in an attempt to stop Jianqin from fusing the 2 swords. Suddenly, something happened. A gentle light descended from the sky, piercing through the layers of 7-colored miasma and forming a barrier around Jianqin. The barrier seemed thin, but it was extremely powerful. When Qizong's full-powered attack landed on it, he was actually unable to pierce through the paper-thin barrier. What a powerful power of laws. Who is it? Qizong sent out a mental pulse, and the flower swayed gently. Every petal rapidly closed up as a powerful energy charged up. The barrier could block his attack. It was not the barrier itself that was powerful, but the power of laws. The expressions of the other 8 divine king changed slightly as well. They all looked at the barrier of light before Jianqin sternly. Jianqin obviously sensed the sudden change as well. He stared at the gentle light around him, and a sliver of joy appeared on his face. He was very familiar with this gentle light, so familiar that he instantly thought of a peerless beauty. Stop this secret technique of yours. I don't know what this secret technique is, but it's far more powerful than your current strength. You'll have to pay an unimaginable price for using it. A familiar voice rang out in Jianqin's head. With that, a woman in a white dress slowly descended from the sky. She was surrounded by pure moonlight. Her face was devastatingly beautiful, peerless in her generation. A bright moon hung behind her, making her look like a fairy flying in the moon. She was extraordinary, refined, and untainted by the mortal world. The presence she gave off was as tremendous as the ocean, enveloping the entire mountains of Seven's despair. It was extremely terrifying, causing the world to tremble and the clouds to surge. Chapter 1889. Fairy Haoyue. Jianqin's voice was filled with surprise and joy. He had never thought that Fairy Haoyue, who had left several decades ago, would actually appear here in such a time of great danger. Moreover, she was so powerful that she was no longer the same as when she had just fled from the Divine King's dwelling. Now, she could easily block Qi Zhang's attacks with just a single layer of defense. Jianqin knew that the danger he faced would be resolved with Fairy Haoyue's appearance. Without any hesitation, he immediately gave up on fusing the 2 swords. At the same time, the sword spirits secretly worked to assist Jianqin. They did everything they could to separate the 2 swords that were about to fuse with great difficulty. During this time, Jianqin suffered a powerful backlash once again. His face became pale white, devoid of any blood. He was haggard and filled with a sense of weakness. The backlash from fusing the 2 swords was just too great. Just the process of fusing the 2 swords, before they had completely fused, had already left Jianqin so heavily injured. If it were not for his chaotic body, which made his body extremely tough, anyone else would have been left half dead even if they managed to survive. We belong to the 9th Prince of the Blood Sun Empire. Sir, who are you? Which clan and which sect do you belong to? Qi Zhang's petals had already closed tightly. He emitted a mental pulse as he spoke sternly. At the same time, the other 8 god kings hidden in the depths of the mountains of Seven's despair made their way over at the same time. Some of them had already assumed human form, while others were the same as Qi Zhang, maintaining their plant forms. They stood with Qi Zhang, and all of their gazes gathered on Fairy Haoyue. They were extremely stern. Fairy Haoyue ignored the 9 divine kings before her. Instead, she looked at Jianqin and studied him. She frowned. Didn't I give you a jade talisman for communication before I left? Why didn't you crush the jade talisman to inform me when you were in danger? If I hadn't coincidentally arrived here, you probably wouldn't have been able to escape death today. With that, Jianqin smiled bitterly. There are 9 divine kings before me. Although I can't tell their exact strength, they must have surpassed the initial divine king. In just a few decades, I have no idea how much strength you've recovered. If I call you over and you're not their opponent, wouldn't that be harming you? Furthermore, the time is so short. If you are very far away from me, even if I ask you for help, I don't know if you can make it in time. You have a point. Not bad. All 9 of them have attained the late stage of the Divine King. Their strength is indeed not something that an early-stage Divine King can compare to. Fairy Haoyue said. She then took out a pill and passed it to Jianqin, saying, "This is a first-grade divine tear healing pill. Consume it quickly." A divine tear pill? Jianqin was secretly stunned. Divine tear pills were already divine pills, far surpassing immortal pills. Every single one of them was priceless. Many divine kings did not even possess pills of this level. He had never thought that in just a few decades, Fairy Haoyue would actually be able to take out a divine tier pill. I'll return the god artifact to you. Sir, please leave quickly. The bald man, Deity, was unwilling to give up. He reluctantly tossed away the god artifact in his hand, which he had not even held for long. The reason why Deity had handed the god artifact back so easily was because it was damaged, so its value had been drastically reduced. Moreover, he could tell that Fairy Haoyue was powerful. There was no need for him to offend such a powerful enemy over a damaged god artifact. Fairy Haoyue accepted the god artifact. A sliver of surprise appeared in her eyes, and then she handed the god artifact back to Jianchen. She said, Jianchen, you haven't come here for no reason, right? Are you looking for something? Correct. Jianchen explained why he had come to the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair. The expressions of the 9 divine king experts all changed when they heard that Jianchen had come for heavenly resources that could heal the soul. You really have come to the right place to look for heavenly resources that can heal the soul. Fairy Haoyue smiled gently. She stared at the 9 divine king meaningfully and said, According to what I know, you just happen to possess a void cloud flower. It's a first-grade divine tier flower, and its main function is to heal the soul. It can also be used as nourishment for the flower of ways. Sir, what are you trying to do? The gazes of the 9 divine kings sharpened. They were filled with caution. You should know what I'm trying to say. Are you going to hand it over, or do you want me to take it personally? Fairy Haoyue said calmly. The void cloud flower belongs to the 9th prince. Sir, are you sure you want to take something from the 9th prince? You should know that the 9th prince is the person with the greatest chance of becoming emperor of the Blood Sun Empire. Even infinite primes have to show some respect to the 9th prince, the old tree said. He wanted to make Fairy Haoyue back off. Who's the 9th prince? I've never heard of him before. However, I don't just want the void cloud flower today. I also want the flower of ways planted here, Fairy Haoyue said. Jianchen basically understood everything with that. The 9 divine king before him had probably been sent by the 9th prince of the eternal Blood Sun Empire in the southern region. Their objective was to nurture the flower of ways here. Clearly, Fairy Haoyue had come for the flower of ways. I wonder what the flower of ways is. It seems quite precious, Jianchen thought. The flower of ways is extremely important to the 9th prince. If you want the flower of ways, you'll have to step over our corpses, the old tree growled. Fairy Haoyue's face sank. She said, If that's the case, I'll have to take it personally. Suddenly, Fairy Haoyue shone brightly, as if she had become a huge moon. Pure and gentle moonlight shone down, dispersing the 7-colored miasma in the surroundings and covering the entire mountain range with a layer of silver. The 9 divine king realm experts were enveloped by the moonlight at this moment. The moonlight seemed to possess the power of time. It could reverse time and space, turning the past and future upside down. Under the cover of the moonlight, the 9 people's appearances rapidly changed, returning to their youth. The old tree and Qi Zhang's colossal bodies shrank at a visible rate as well. Something unbelievable was happening to them. It was as if all the time they had spent in their lives was rapidly receding, returning to the past. Even more terrifyingly, their strength rapidly declined as well. They went from late Divine King Realm to mid-Divine King Realm before falling back to early Divine King Realm. This is the power of time. Oh no! She's used the power of time to return us to the past. The 9 divine kings from the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair cried out. Their faces all changed drastically. Chapter 1890. A vicious gleam of light immediately flashed through Fairy Haoyue's eyes as soon as he said that. She immediately glared at the divine king who was gradually returning to his youth under her powers of time. Cold-killing intent filled her eyes. If that's the case, I can only kill all 9 of you. As long as you're dead, that 9th prince won't know what happened here. Even if he knows, he won't know who took the Void Cloud Flower and the Flower of Ways, Fairy Haoyue said coldly. Originally, she had not come with killing intent. She only wanted to take the Flower of Ways. The flower would be extremely helpful to her recovery. However, Duo Ti's words had ignited the killing intent in her heart. The Blood Sun Empire was an eternal empire in the southern region of the Cloud Plain. They were extremely powerful, but Fairy Haoyue did not take them seriously at all. The only thing she was worried about was causing trouble for Genshin's Tianyuan family. That was exactly why she changed her mind and made up her mind to kill them all. Fairy Haoyue reached out, and immediately, surging essence of the moon condensed in the air. It condensed into a jade-white scepter in her hand in a single moment. Even though the scepter was an illusionary object condensed from energy, it was exactly the same as the moon god scepter that she had given to Yu in the past. Fairy Haoyue held the scepter as a moon appeared behind her. Extremely powerful moonlight shone from her, illuminating the surroundings and enveloping the mountains. She gently waved the scepter in her hand, and 9 pillars of light appeared above the 9 divine king experts at the same time. They all pulsed with powerful energy, and they possessed the power of laws that completely surpassed the divine kings. Every single pillar of light possessed devastating power. The 9 divine king experts all glowed as powerful energy pulsed from their bodies. None of them were willing to die like this. Even though they knew that they were no match for them, they still fought back as hard as they could. They all used their full strength to strike at the pillars of light above them. Boom! A deafening rumble rang out as the vast and surging energy formed a storm. The laws of the world intertwined. The collision this time was extremely shocking. It seemed like the space there was about to be ripped apart. The entire Mountains of Seven's despair shook violently from the collision. It was like an earthquake had occurred, yet it also seemed like the end of the world. Mountains collapsed, and the ground was reduced to a bottomless chasm. The mountain below everyone had been reduced to dust as well. This was the power of a single strike from the 9 divine king experts and Fairy Haoyue. It truly possessed the power to destroy the world. If they were in a provincial city like the Dong and province, a single strike from them would be enough to flatten the entire city. Even overgods would not be able to escape death. So powerful. Genshin hovered in the air behind Fairy Haoyue. With Fairy Haoyue at the front, the terrifying shockwaves were unable to reach him at all. He stared at the scene before him with his mouth agape. He was extremely shocked. He felt that with his current strength, just the aftermath of this destructive energy was enough to severely injure him. Fairy Haoyue stood like a lofty mountain. A barrier formed from the power of laws stood before her, preventing her clothes from ruffling no matter how violent the energy was. However, the 9 god kings from the Mountains of Seven's despair all vomited a mist of blood. It was mixed with many pieces of organs, which rained down like a rain of blood. The blood of god kings dyed the sky red. Now, all of them were pale and dispirited. Their injuries were very serious. Fairy Haoyue was so powerful that even if the 9 divine kings worked together, it would be like throwing eggs at a rock. Get into formation! A god king called out from the Mountains of Seven's despair. They ignored their wounds and created a formation as quickly as possible, fusing their powers together. Immediately, an even greater pressure radiated from them. After fusing their powers together, their resistance to Fairy Haoyue's powers of time became greater and greater. They actually recovered to mid-Divine King at that moment from being suppressed to early Divine King. The world's fate, sword of calamity. The 9 divine kings bellowed out, and their voices rang through the sky. A streak of dazzling sword chi silently formed between the 9 of them. It radiated with supreme pressure as it shot towards Fairy Haoyue. The sword chi moved extremely quickly, even faster than Jian Chen's linear lightning release. The sword Qi whistled through the air as if it could pierce through space, ignoring the distance between them. It arrived before Fairy Haoyu in a single instance. Jian Chen's face changed. The sword Qi was just too fast, so fast that he had no time to react. As a matter of fact, he was unable to see the sword Qi with his naked eye. He could only sense it through the pressure it gave off. However, Fairy Haoyue's face did not change at all. She remained composed. She raised a slender finger and gently extended it forward. Fairy Haoyue clearly did not move quickly. As a matter of fact, she seemed extremely slow. However, when she completed her series of actions, the sword Qi that was already close to her had only advanced an inch. This scene was very puzzling. It was as if there was a difference in the flow of time between the two. The flow of time had become different. Disperse! Fairy Haoyue called out gently and extended a finger. Immediately, the power of laws that completely surpassed the Divine King's level of cultivation descended, directly enveloping the sword Qi. In the next moment, the sword Qi that the 9 Divine Kings had cast together dispersed just like that. It had been directly obliterated by the laws of the primordial realm. The faces of the 9 Divine Kings changed drastically. They could not help but stagger backwards. Their gazes towards Fairy Haoyue were filled with fear. However, they looked at each other in the next moment. As if they could read each other's minds, they used their abilities and fled without any hesitation at all. Some of them used secret techniques to flee, while others took out teleportation formation discs. "If I don't let you leave in my domain, you won't be able to escape," Fairy Haoyue said calmly. As expected, the 9 Divine Kings all despaired. They used secret techniques to flee, but they discovered that they were still where they were. They activated their teleportation formation discs, but there was no power to teleport them. "Originally, I didn't want to kill you, but I have to now." Fairy Haoyue was emotionless. Killing intent filled her eyes as she swung her scepter. She produced 9 powerful strands of moonlight force, enveloping the 9 Divine Kings with the laws of the primordial realm. This time, the 9 Divine Kings were no longer able to resist. They were heavily injured already, so they were directly wiped out by Fairy Haoyue's attack. From the beginning to the end, Fairy Haoyue did not move at all. With a wave of her hand, she could suppress the Divine Kings. In just a few moves, she had slain the 9 late Divine Kings. She was extremely composed. Clearly, she had not used her full strength. Jian Chen stared at this scene with his mouth agape. Even when the 9 God Kings all died, he still felt like he was dreaming, as if he was in a dream. He refused to believe that this was reality. Several decades ago, when Fairy Haoyue was still a soul, even an Origin Realm expert could kill her. That was when she was truly as weak as an ant. Yet today, she had killed 9 Divine Kings with a flip of her hand. Since when had the Divine Kings become so weak? P.S. This period of time is free. All the VIP chapters are free. Readers who are still reading the pirated version can go to the original version to read. If you don't know the original version's address, you can listen to Xiaoyao's public message. Search Xingxingxiao 110. Chapter 1891. Fairy Haoyue, have you completely recovered your strength? Jian Chen stared at Fairy Haoyue's back rather absent-mindedly. The person standing before him was a supreme expert, which left Jian Chen rather dazed. This was because he struggled to connect the invincible Fairy Haoyue before him with the Fairy Haoyue he had seen on the Tianyuan continent. Fairy Haoyue returned to her senses. She stared at Jian Chen and shook her head. "My cultivation has only recovered to early Divine King, but the power of my soul has recovered 80% of its peak condition. I can already use the power of laws at the primordial realm, which is why I was able to kill the 9 Divine Kings so easily." With that, Fairy Haoyue suddenly looked into the distance. Her deep gaze seemed to be able to pierce through space and reach the depths of the world. She could see the scenery that was extremely far away. The disturbance here has been rather great. Many people are hurrying over. Let's go get the flower of ways and void cloud flowers, said Fairy Hauyue. With a wave of her hand, a terrifying pulse of energy that belonged to a divine king and the power of laws that belonged to a primordial realm expert wrapped around Jianqin. She directly flew downwards. Jianqin was unable to resist at all. Even though Fairy Hauyue had not fully recovered, her strength was unquestionable. Even though she had only recovered to early Divine King, her comprehension as a primordial realm expert was enough for her to reign supreme among Divine Kings. Perhaps even Protector Shui, who ranks 9th under the Divine King, is probably not Fairy Haoyue's opponent now, Jianqin thought. He could not help but compare her to Protector Shui and Fairy Haoyue. In the past, Shui Yunlan had heavily injured the strongest Divine King of the God clan, Aladona, in a lower world, leaving only her as a soul. Jianqin was utterly shocked. Back then, Shui Yunlan was the greatest existence in the world in Jianqin's heart. Her strength had exceeded his imagination. Many of the mountains in the 7 Despair Mountains had collapsed, so the flower of ways and void cloud flowers planted by the 9 Divine Kings were naturally buried in the thick rubble. Fairy Haoyue arrived at the very bottom with Jianqin. She erupted with the Divine King's cultivation and directly shifted the flower of ways and void cloud flowers buried in the rubble. There were 2 snow-white flowers, and one of them had 9 petals. There was a faint white mist lingering around it, and the 9 petals were faintly discernible. The other flower only had 3 petals. Every single petal was covered in complicated and profound inscriptions, sometimes blurry and sometimes clear. Moreover, the inscriptions seemed static, but they also seemed to change at all times, resonating with the ways of the world as if the mysteries of laws were present. The 2 flowers did not grow in the soil. Instead, they grew on a huge white jade pedestal. Powerful formations were engraved on the jade pedestal, protecting the 2 flowers. The flower of ways hasn't matured yet, so its effects are drastically reduced. However, I can't care about that right now. As long as I can recover some of my strength, I don't care even if I have to waste it. Fairy Haoyue murmured to herself as she stared at the white flower with only 3 petals. Afterwards, with a wave of her hand, the flower of ways flew into her hand on its own. She casually tossed it into her space ring. Afterwards, the other flower with 9 petals landed in Fairy Haoyue's hand as well. She passed the flower to Jianqin and said, "This is a void cloud flower, a first-grade god tier, heavenly resource. Whether it's healing wounds to the soul or recovering the power of the soul, it's extremely effective. Of course, if you refine the flower into pills, the effects will be even greater. Unfortunately, there are extremely few pill masters who can refine pills using heavenly resources. They're very difficult to find." Jianqin did not hold back and directly accepted the void cloud flower. However, he frowned very soon and bitterly smiled. He passed the void cloud flower back to Fairy Haoyue and said, "Fairy Haoyue, the formations here have already reached the level of the Divine King. I don't have the ability to get through them." Fairy Haoyue nodded and said, "Those people will be here soon. Let's leave first and find a quiet place to get through the formations for you. If they see you here and the 9th prince hears about it, it will be extremely disadvantageous for you. It might even be a disaster. Wait, I want to take the golden-striped silver snake's corpse with me." "I have great use for it," said Jianqin. He arrived before the golden-striped silver snake as quickly as he could and directly stowed the corpse away. Moreover, Jianqin went through the corpses of the other Divine Kings as well. Only one of them was a human among the Divine Kings. The other 8 were either magical beasts or demon cores condensed from plants. In the end, the demon cores and monster cores on the level of the Divine King naturally ended up in Jianqin's hands. However, Fairy Haoyue took away most of the space rings from the Divine King. She wanted to use the resources in there to recover her strength as soon as possible. After doing all that, Fairy Haoyue waved her hand, causing the clouds in the surroundings to dance. Primordial realm laws descended, erasing Jianqin's presence from the Yin Mountains of Seven's despair. Only her presence remained. Afterwards, she left with Jianqin. Soon after Fairy Haoyue and Jianqin had left, 5 figures shot over with lightning speed. They seemed to have fused with the space there, moving silently as they moved. They were so fast that they could cross 1,000 kilometers in a single instant. In the blink of an eye, they arrived at the outermost region of the Yin Mountains of Seven's despair. Even though the 5 of them were divine king experts, they concealed their presences and kept an extremely low profile. They stared at the depths of the Yin Mountains of Seven's despair sternly. The presence of laws from a primordial realm expert. Has a primordial realm expert flattened the Yin Mountains of Seven's despair? A middle-aged man in violet gold dragon robes growled. The 4 other divine king experts remained silent. They stared at the depths of the Yin Mountains of Seven's despair as they struggled to remain calm. The 5 divine king experts were all peak experts from the nearby divine kingdom of Deity and divine kingdom of Qingyang. 2 of them wore dragon robes and possessed dignified bearings. They were the divine kings of the divine kingdom of Deity and divine kingdom of Qingyang. The commotion caused by the Yin Mountains of Seven's despair had attracted all the divine kings from divine kingdom of Deity and divine kingdom of Qingyang. As time went on, more and more divine king experts arrived. They came from the divine kingdom of 9 stars, the divine kingdom of Crimson, the divine kingdom of Kaiyuan, the divine kingdom of Clear Cloud, the divine kingdom of Baliega, and so on. In short, basically all the nearby divine kingdoms had sent divine king experts over. Even the grand imperial protector of the divine kingdom of Pingtian had arrived. They all entered the depths of the Yin Mountains of Seven's despair. Chapter 1892. All the divine king experts who had gathered from the nearby divine kingdoms personally witnessed the corpses of the 8 divine kings. All of them fell silent. No one could remain calm after witnessing the scene before their eyes. Everyone's hearts were filled with shock. Before long, the divine king experts from the nearby divine kingdoms all dispersed. They did not touch a single thing there. Even when it came to the corpses of the 8 divine kings, they only stared at them from afar. They did not dare to approach them, as they were afraid that they would be tainted by some unnecessary karma. At the same time, the divine king stood on the tallest building in the royal palace in white robes. He stood there with his hands behind his back as he stared in the direction of the Yin Mountains of Seven's despair with his deep eyes. He had already expanded the senses of his soul, crossing through the vast territory of the divine kingdom of Pingtian and the entire territory of the divine kingdom of Qingyang, all the way to the depths of the Yin Mountains of Seven's despair. This person is so powerful. Only after quite a while did the divine kings say that sternly. He was extremely stern. Jianqin's presence has completely vanished from the Yin Mountains of Seven's despair as well. The primordial realm expert has forcefully erased it. If it were not for the fact that I already knew Jianqin had entered the Yin Mountains of Seven's despair, I definitely would not have sensed that someone else had entered the mountains. We can basically confirm that the primordial realm expert who flattened the Yin Mountains of Seven's despair is the soul that appeared in the divine King Duanmu's dwelling. However, I wonder if her strength has recovered to its peak. The power of laws in the Yin Mountains of Seven's despair has already surpassed most primordial realm experts. If her strength hasn't recovered to its peak, she's just too powerful, the divine king murmured as the light in his eyes flickered, constantly fluctuating. In an ancient mountain range within the divine kingdom of Pingtian, Jianqin and Fairy Haoyue stayed in a temporary cave. A huge luminous pearl was embedded in the ceiling of the cave, shining with a gentle light. It added some light to the gloomy cave. Jianqin sat on the ground as he stared at Fairy Haoyue, who sat on the ground as well. To be more precise, He stared at the void cloud flower in Fairy Hayue's hand. The void cloud flower was similar to the flower of ways. It was rooted in a huge piece of jade and slowly grew by absorbing the energy within the jade. A divine king-level formation had been cast down on the entire piece of jade. Fairy Hayue was currently trying to get through the formation. However, with her strength as a primordial realm expert, getting through a mere divine king-level formation was naturally a piece of cake. She spent 2 hours to get through the formation. If it were not for the fact that she was worried about damaging the void cloud flower, Fairy Hayue would not have needed 2 hours at all. Once the laws of the primordial realm descended, she only needed a single strike to get through the formation. Jianqin held the void cloud flower and sniffed the familiar fragrance from it. He was extremely excited. This was a god-tier, heavenly resource. With the void cloud flower, he was basically completely confident that he could awaken Kea. Although the void cloud flower is precious, it's only used to nurture the flower of ways. The truly precious item is the flower of ways, said Fairy Hayue. She stared at Jianqin with her beautiful eyes and said sternly, the most precious aspect of the flower of ways isn't the extremely terrifying essence within it that can drastically increase a person's cultivation. Instead, the flower contains the comprehension of the ways of the world, which can increase a divine king's chances of reaching the primordial realm by 50%. Moreover, the flower of ways isn't just useful to the divine king. It can assist infinite primes to a certain extent as well. It can increase their chances of breaking through by 20%. As a result, we can conclude that the flower of ways is the treasure the Ninth Prince is using to break through to infinite prime. Its importance to him goes without saying. You have to be careful of the Ninth Prince in the future. Once he discovers any traces on you, it'll be extremely bad for you. After all, I can't always be by your side. Fairy Hayue warned Jianqin seriously and sternly. Jianqin was still too weak right now. He could not fight back at all against the Ninth Prince of the Eternal Blood Sun Empire, who possessed great authority. This was because the Eternal Blood Sun Empire was basically the ruler of the southern region. Jianqin nodded seriously. He understood the severity of this matter. Afterwards, Jianqin thought of something. He took out all the overgod monster cores and monster cores he had collected from the Een Mountains of Seven's Despair and asked Fairy Hayue to refine the poison inside. The monster cores and monster cores were filled with poison. He was unable to directly absorb them with his current chaotic body. He could only ask a divine king to refine the poison using their own cultivation. There just happened to be an expert like that right before him. So Jianqin naturally would not miss out on this opportunity. Fairy Hayue naturally did not turn him down. The divine king erupted with his early cultivation and directly began to refine the 6 monster cores and monster cores. The refinement lasted for an entire day. Only then did Fairy Hayue purge the poison from the 6 monster cores and monster cores, leaving behind extremely pure and surging energy. After handing the 6 monster cores and monster cores back to Jianqin, Fairy Hayue said, I can't refine the monster cores and monster cores on the level of the Divine King with my current cultivation, so I'll leave them with you for now. I'll only be able to refine them once I recover to the primordial realm. Oh right, I came across this armor by chance. It's a supreme quality saint artifact, and it possesses extraordinary defensive abilities. Just the armor itself can block the attacks of God Kings several times. I have no use for it, so you can have it, Jianqin said. With a flip of her hand, a set of exquisite armor appeared in Fairy Hayue's hand. She directly tossed it to Jianqin like trash. Afterwards, Fairy Hayue bid farewell to Jianqin and left by herself. She planned on using the Flower of Ways to recover her strength. After Fairy Hayue's departure, Jianqin sat in the cave by himself. He held the supreme quality saint artifact in his hand as he experienced mixed feelings. Back when he bought the high-quality saint artifact, the startling rainbow sword, it made his heart ache for quite a while. Yet now he possessed a supreme quality saint artifact, and it was a defensive one at that. Defensive saint artifacts were far more valuable than offensive saint artifacts of the same level. The armor in his hand had already reached the supreme quality, so its value had even exceeded Jianshin's imagination. A supreme quality saint artifact was a treasure that was infinitely close to a god artifact. Jianshin sucked in a deep breath and slowly calmed himself down. An iridescent jade spirit platform flower, a void cloud flower, 6 over-god monster cores and monster cores, 8 divine king monster cores and monster cores, a golden striped silver snake's corpse, and a supreme quality saint artifact armor. He sighed in amazement at the bountiful harvest he had gained from the trip to the Een Mountains of Seven's despair this time. It's time to go back. With these 6 over-god monster cores and monster cores, I can finally break through with the chaotic body. I'm already unmatched among overgods. Once my chaotic body breaks through to the next layer, just what level will my battle prowess reach? Chapter 1893. Jianshan returned to the Tianyuan family and immediately entered a secret room. With a wave of his hand, a crystal coffin flew out of the bright moon divine hall. A fist-sized, 7-colored, heaven-devouring beast lay on the crystal coffin silently. However, unlike before, the 7-colored, heaven-devouring beast did not cultivate today. Instead, it stared at Kaya's face with its beady eyes. Its intelligent eyes were filled with some doubt and eagerness at the same time. In reality, it had been like this for a very long time already. It had remained like this since the moment Jianshin fought the divine king of the Een Mountains of Seven's despair. Jianshin obviously did not take the 7-colored, heaven-devouring beast's abnormality to heart. He arrived before the crystal coffin and slowly opened the lid. Afterwards, he activated the formations around the secret room. Only after doing that did he take out the Vajra spirit platform flower and void cloud flower he had obtained from the Een Mountains of Seven's despair. In an instant, a dense fragrance permeated the air. Just by inhaling it, one would feel relaxed and refreshed, and all the meridians in one's body would be unobstructed. The fragrance had been tightly sealed within the tiny room by the formations, so it did not disperse. Otherwise, just the fragrance alone would have filled the entire provincial city in an extremely short amount of time. After all, one of the flowers was a void cloud flower that had even reached the god tier. The 7-colored, heaven-devouring beast's eyes immediately lit up. It finally shifted its intelligent gaze away from Kaya and stared at the Vajra spirit platform flower and void cloud flower in Jianshin's hands. It became excited as it flapped its wings and circled around Jianshin happily. It was as if it was certain that Jianshin could awaken Kaya this time. Jianshin held the 2 heavenly resources that could heal the soul. After a moment of hesitation, he decided to use the Vajra spirit platform flower in the end. If the Vajra spirit platform flower could awaken Kaya, it would be able to resolve the issue of a god tier heavenly resource. Very soon, Jianshin fed the Vajra spirit platform flower into Kaya's mouth. In an instant, it turned into surging energy that gathered towards Kaya's soul. Jianshin stared at Kaya without blinking. His face was filled with deep concern as well as eagerness. Time passed silently. Very soon, for hours had passed since Kaya had consumed the Vajra spirit platform flower, but he still had not awakened. It looks like I can't save the void cloud flower, thought Jianshin. Without any hesitation, he fed the void cloud flower into Kaya's mouth. However, he could not help but mutter inside, "You're clearly just a holy emperor, yet you need so many heavenly resources that can heal the soul. This is the first time I've seen something as strange as this." However, the void cloud flower is already the highest grade heavenly resource I can obtain. If it still can't awaken you, there's really nothing else I can do. Kaya, you have to wake up. Jianshin was filled with hope. Both he and the 7-colored heaven-devouring beast focused all their attention on Kaya. However, at this moment, Genshin's face changed. The jade talisman, with a sliver of the power of his soul that he had left in the Tianyuan family before, had been crushed. Genshin's face changed slightly. The fact that the jade talisman had been crushed meant that the Tianyuan family was in great danger. The danger was so great that it could even threaten the survival of the Tianyuan family. Genshin immediately turned around and left. He appeared in the clan and headed for the discussion hall. All the elders had already gathered in the discussion hall of the Tianyuan family. They all sat on their chairs with heavy faces, causing the atmosphere in the hall to become rather oppressive. What has happened? Genshin sat on the Patriarch's throne sternly. Patriarch, the divine kingdom of 3 cauldrons, was destroyed 2 days ago. 2 of their 3 divine king realm experts were slain by the commander of the 9th army of the heavenly demon religion. Only the divine king managed to flee with injuries. But we just received another piece of news. The 7th and 8th armies of the heavenly demon religion have been mobilized at the same time. They are currently converging with the 9th army. The 3 armies are currently heading straight for our divine kingdom of Pingtian. Mo Ling stood up and said sternly. Genshin sat on the Patriarch's throne as the light in his eyes flickered with uncertainty. He said sternly, the fact that the 3 armies of the heavenly demon religion have been mobilized at the same time probably isn't that simple. It probably has nothing to do with the 3 over-gods from the heavenly demon religion that I killed a few days ago. 3 over-gods are not enough for the heavenly demon religion to mobilize 3 armies. Report. At this moment, a guard rushed in hurriedly. He knelt down on one knee and said loudly, Patriarch, special envoys from the royal capital have arrived. They are currently waiting at the entrance. Let them in, said Genshin. Yes, sir. Very soon, several heavenly gods with serious expressions hurried in from outside. Even though they were special envoys from the royal capital who were in charge of delivering the divine king's orders and possessed great statuses, they all dismissed their arrogance after joining the Tianyuan family. The envoys bowed politely towards Genshin before one of them said extremely politely, Esteemed Patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, we have come under the orders of His Majesty to invite the Patriarch to the royal capital to discuss some matters. I understand. Go back and report to His Majesty that I will hurry over as soon as possible, Genshin said to the envoys. Just as Genshin, Zhengyu, and the upper echelon of the Tianyuan family were discussing matters in the discussion hall, Keia's eyelashes began to tremble once again as he lay in the crystal coffin in the room, enveloped by formations. The trembling was not like last time, where it had only lasted for a single moment. Instead, it constantly trembled, and it became more and more intense. It was as if his eyes were struggling to open. Naturally, the 7-colored heaven-devouring beast, who had been paying attention to Keia the entire time, noticed this. It immediately cried out happily as it circled around the crystal coffin. It was extremely excited. Finally, Keia's eyes opened slowly. What kind of eyes were those? If Genshin saw Keia's eyes, he would definitely doubt whether the person before him was Keia or not. This was because those were a pair of icy cold and emotionless eyes. They were so cold that it was terrifying. It was as if she did not possess any emotions at all. As a matter of fact, there was even a sense of disregard for life within those eyes. It was as if she was an invincible ruler of the 8 wastelands, looking down on the world as if they were ants. The 7-colored, heaven-devouring beast stopped flying. It continued to flap its wings, but it had been frozen in the air by an invisible force. It was unable to move at all. At the same time, the origin energy in the secret chamber and the spatial fluctuations also froze. At that moment, time seemed to come to a standstill in the secret room where Kaiyu resided. Everything seemed to have stopped growing. The scene inside seemed to have become a picture that would never change. At the same time, in the space beyond the boundless cloud plane, in a space that far exceeded what godhood experts could sense, a terrifying strand of laws silently condensed. The laws were so powerful that they seemed to be able to replace the heavenly ways. They represented the will of the heavenly ways. As a matter of fact, their appearance was a great disturbance to the 3,000 ways of the world. Chapter 1894. What terrifying power of laws! It has basically reached the limit. Even the other 3,000 laws have been affected and suppressed. Who is this person? How can such a sovereign appear on the cloud plane? This is the laws of the heavenly ways. Basically, all creators who have reached such a high level in the domain of laws have fused with the ways, becoming the laws of the heavenly ways. Has someone reached that level again? This person is so powerful. I can only sense the power of laws in outer space, but I can't sense where this person is at all. Among all the superforces in the 5 regions of the cloud region, those ancient existences who had lived for an unknown number of years cried out one after another. Everyone's eyes were filled with fear, and huge waves rose in their hearts. They could not calm down at all. They also yearned to reach such a level of cultivation. At the same time, many extremely powerful senses of the soul spread out from different locations across the 5 regions of the cloud plane. Every single one of them could envelop the entire cloud plane. The range they covered was so great that it was shocking. However, even though these ancient existences who had lived for a long time had turned the entire cloud plane upside down, they still could not find the sovereign. Apart from the terrifying power of laws that was brewing in outer space, they could not even capture the slightest trace of this sovereign's aura. The terrifying senses of the souls of these ancient existences were extremely well hidden. As a result, only a few peak experts on the cloud plane could sense them. Even infinite primes were unable to sense them at all. Kea slowly rose into the air from the secret room of the Tianyuan family in the Dong and province of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Fragments of time seemed to flicker and change in her cold, emotionless eyes. In that short moment, she understood her past and present life. At this moment, she suddenly turned around. With this glance, talisman markings of the Grand Tao flickered in her eyes. At this moment, she'd become one with the Grand Tao, and it was as if she'd transformed into a part of the Heaven Tao. She could see through the ages and see through the past and the future with a single glance. She saw everything that had happened while she was unconscious. She saw Jianqin place her in a crystal coffin as they traveled from the Tianyuan continent to the Saints' world. She saw how Jianqin had placed her in the bright moon divine hall and fought against people in the Saints' world all by himself. He had also seen how Jianqin had entered the depths of the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair in order to obtain the Void Cloud Flower and awaken him. He had almost lost his life there. Kea's gaze once again returned to its cold and emotionless state. Her expression was cold and emotionless. She looked through the secret chamber and directly looked at Jianqin, who was presiding over the meeting in the Tianyuan family's meeting hall. "Since you've helped me, I should have given you a great fortune. Unfortunately, you're from the immortals' world, and you even have the azulate swords," Kea murmured. At this moment, her voice had changed. It was no longer the same voice as before. It was extremely strange, as if her voice contained all the rhythms in the world. If you believed it to be a man's voice, it would be a man's voice. If you believed it to be a woman's voice, it would be a woman's voice. As a matter of fact, if you believed it to be the chirping of birds, it would be the chirping of birds, beasts, and insects. This was because all the rhythms in the world were contained in her short sentence. "Whatever. Since you've formed a relationship with my reincarnated body, I'll leave the reincarnated body behind. I'll use this reincarnated body to end my relationship with you. From today onwards, I will no longer have anything to do with this reincarnated body." Kea murmured to herself. With that, an extremely powerful ball of light drifted out from between her eyebrows, forming a hazy, illusionary figure. The figure was enveloped by the light of ways, so it was impossible to see clearly. It was even impossible to tell whether it was a man or a woman. The ball of light slowly extended her hand and pointed at Kea's forehead. After injecting a ball of power of the soul that was insignificant to her, she also removed a portion of her memories, leaving behind only the memories of the reincarnated body. Afterwards, she looked at the seven-colored heaven-devouring beast and said, "Kai-Er, I never thought that you would actually be able to escape that disaster. However, you've reincarnated through thousands of lifetimes as a damaged soul. You'll need to find your lost memories yourself." The seven-colored, heaven-devouring beast was trapped there. Its intelligent eyes were wide open as it stared at the ball of light before it in both fear and confusion. The strength of this ball of primordial spirit light was so strong that it made it feel fear. However, the words that followed caused it to be unable to make head or tail of it, unable to understand what was going on. However, it could vaguely sense an extremely intimate presence from the ball of light. It originated from the depths of its soul, filling it with a sense of security. At the same time, it felt like it had found a home. This feeling was exactly the same as what it had felt from Kea. It was exactly because of this that it had voluntarily followed Kea, who was even weaker than it, back in the divine realm of the sea region. In the end, the ball of light extended its hand and gently rubbed the seven-colored heaven-devouring beast's forehead, sealing up the small portion of its memories. The seven-colored heaven-devouring beast closed its eyes and immediately fainted. It was gently placed on the ground by a gentle force. Kea's body also closed its eyes at that moment, lying quietly in the crystal coffin again. As for the ball of light, it suddenly vanished at that moment. It had already left silently. The formation outside the secret room was completely useless. Jianchen concluded the meeting in the discussion hall of the Tianyuan family. He announced that the entire clan would enter a state of high alert from this moment onwards. The teleportation formation he had cast down in the clan was ready to be used at any time as well. Once the divine kingdom of Pingtian fell, all the people of the Tianyuan family would evacuate through the teleportation formation. Jianchen immediately hurried to the secret room after leaving the discussion hall. The seven-colored heaven-swallowing beast, who had fallen asleep on the ground in the secret room, also opened its eyes at this moment. Its intelligent eyes were a little lost as it looked around. However, it seemed to have recalled something. It suddenly flew up from the ground and arrived in front of the crystal coffin. Right now, it could no longer remember what had just happened. It was as if that memory had already disappeared from its mind. Jianchen also entered the secret room from outside. He looked at Kea, who was still lying in the crystal coffin, and frowned. He murmured, "Why hasn't she woken up yet? Is a void cloud flower not enough to cure Kea? That's a god-tier heavenly resource." Jianchan arrived before the crystal coffin and stared at Kea, who lay peacefully inside. He was troubled. He had no idea what to do. What's a void cloud flower? However, at this moment, Kea suddenly said something subconsciously. Afterwards, she finally opened her eyes slowly. Jianchen was stunned by the sudden voice. Only when he saw Kea open her eyes did he become overjoyed. "Kea, you've finally woken up. Do you know how long you've been unconscious for?" Jianchen happily asked. The void cloud flower really did not disappoint him. How did I fall unconscious?" Kaia's gaze was rather lost, but gradually she began to remember what had happened in the past. She remembered how she had been taken away by an Origin Realm expert during the battle between the world of Forsaken Saints and the Tianyuan continent. "Jianchen, did you save me? How long have I been unconscious? Where am I?" Kea looked around in confusion. Chapter 1895. You've already been unconscious for 100 years, and many things have happened during that time. We're no longer on the Tianyuan continent. Instead, we've come to a higher world. This world is called the Saints' World. Jianchen said, telling Kea everything that had happened after she had fallen unconscious. He told Kea everything, including the peace between the Tianyuan continent and the world of Forsaken Saints, the appearance of the evil spirit, and so on. He even told Kea about the Tianyuan family he had founded in the Saints' World. Not only was Kea from his homeland, but she also came from the same world. Jianqin had even treated her as a good friend, so he obviously did not hide anything from Kea. Kea sank into her thoughts after learning that so many things had happened while she was unconscious. To her, the past 100 years had been like a dream. She had sensed nothing at all. Now that she had woken up, the world had changed. She clearly needed time to digest and accept everything. I never thought that I would have come to another world when I woke up, Kea murmured softly. She was rather dejected and sorrowful. She could not help but think about her life in the sea realm of the Tianyuan continent. She thought about her destroyed family and her dead father. She knew that it would probably be very difficult for her to return to the saints' world now that she had come to it. Even if she could return, who knew how long it would take? Sensing Kea's sorrow, the seven-colored, heaven-devouring beast flapped its wings and landed on Kea's shoulder. It used its little head to gently rub Kea's face, comforting Kea in its own way. Jianqin, thank you for saving me. I want to be alone for a while, Kea said to Jianqin. Her voice was very gentle, and it contained a hint of sorrow. Jianqin nodded and left the room without disturbing Kea. At the same time, a white-robed, white-haired old man sat in one of the most luxurious inns in the royal capital of the Heavenly Moon Empire. He studied a palm-sized azure disk. Jianqin is becoming more and more powerful. His rate of improvement is so fast that few people in the entire Saints world can match him. At this rate, Jianqin will probably reach the level of the Divine King even faster than the old man. Although the Heavenly Moon Empire isn't small, it's just too close to the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian. It looks like the old man needs to go even further, or even leave the cloud plane, the old man murmured to himself as he sat on the bed. He was slightly worried. The old man was Master Qianlong. With Master Qianlong's abilities, there was no need for him to fear Jianqin, so much even if Jianqin was more powerful than him. At most, he could find an organization to join and use that organization to eliminate Jianqin. That was nothing difficult for him. However, in the past few years, the trapped soul would constantly talk about how it had seen the future. It seemed like it had seen the scene of him dying at Jianqin's hands. If anyone else had said that, Master Qianlong would have never believed them. He would have just sniffed at them. However, in the past few years, he gradually discovered that the soul really did seem to possess the ability to predict the future. Everything it said in the past few years would come true, which gradually shook Master Qianlong's resolve. It made Master Qianlong believe that he really was doomed. Even if he joined an organization, he would not be able to avoid death at Jianqin's hands. As a result, Master Qianlong only hoped to get as far away from Jianqin as possible so that he could avoid the future disaster. All of this was because every word that the trapped soul said had an extremely great impact on him. But the heavenly demon religion is about to deal with the divine kingdom of Pingtian now. I really hope Jianqin can die at the hands of the heavenly demon religion, said Master Qianlong. Old man Qianlong, stop daydreaming. I can see that Jianqin is entangled with the heavenly demon religion in many ways. It's far more complicated than anyone can imagine. The heavenly demon religion is both a blessing and a curse to Jianqin. You're dreaming if you want Jianqin to die at the hands of the heavenly demon religion. I can clearly see a corner of your future. No matter what you do, you won't be able to avoid death in the end, said the trapped soul. His voice drifted out of the interspatial ring. He was still sealed in a formation flag. You can't do that, said the trapped primordial spirit. His voice drifted out of the interspatial ring. At this moment, the soul suddenly cried out in surprise. As if he had taken stimulants, he said loudly, A change! A change! A change has appeared. Old man Qianlong, go to the Dong and province of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. I can see a sliver of hope for you there. It's your only hope, so don't miss it. She currently stood in the garden of the Tianyuan family in the Dong and province. She stared at the sea of flowers in a daze. Her lonely and bleak figure gave off a faint sense of sorrow. She held a jade pendant that was only 3 fingers wide tightly in her hand. The jade pendant was made from an unknown material. It was extremely tough and extremely delicate. It was engraved with the image of a dragon and a phoenix, and the 2 words Shiyu were engraved in the center of the pendant. Shiyu always carried the jade pendant with her. She treated it as the most important thing in her life. In the past few years, she would often take the jade pendant to a quiet place where no one would disturb her. She would fall into a daze and not think about anything. She would just remain there quietly. She was not a part of the Emo clan. Instead, she had been picked up by the patriarch when she was young. Back then, she was only a newborn. Even now, Shiyu had no idea who her birth parents were or whether they were still alive. Only the jade pendant was extremely likely to have been left behind by her parents. Her name, Shiyu, also came from the words on the jade pendant. "Is there something on your mind?" Just as Shiyu was lost in her thoughts, a familiar voice rang out in her head. Jianchen had arrived beside Shiyu at some point in time. He stared at the jade pendant in Shiyu's hand curiously. "Patriarch," Shiyu said politely. She was rather gloomy. "Can I see the jade pendant in your hand?" Jianchen asked. Shiyu hesitated slightly before passing the jade pendant to Jianchen. Jianchen held the jade pendant in his hand and studied it. He gradually became stern. Shiyu said gloomily, "My foster father said that I already had the jade pendant with me when he found me outside. Perhaps my birth parents left it behind for me." "Patriarch, why do you think they would be so cruel as to abandon their daughter? This jade pendant is very extraordinary. Although I don't know what it's made of, I can tell with a single glance that it's precious." Jianchen returned the jade pendant to Shiyu and stared at her with some mixed feelings. He said, "Your parents must have had their reasons for abandoning you. Perhaps they were being hunted down by their enemies, so they had no choice." Jianchen sighed gently when he reached there. He said, "In the past, my background was the same as yours. I was an orphan, and I didn't know who my parents were. Even until the moment of my death, I still failed to find my birth parents." Jianchen could not help but think about his past life. In that life, he was all alone. He used a fragment of the Azulite sword law to forge a sword style that was unrivaled in the Jianghu. In just over 20 years of age, he became the greatest sword god in the Jianghu. Fortunately, the heavens did not abandon him. In his second life, which was his current life, he was given a home, allowing him to taste the warmth of a family. She stared at Jianchen blankly. She had never thought that Jianchen would actually have the same pitiful background as her. At that moment, she actually felt like they shared the same fate. Jianchen dismissed his thoughts and took out the origin gathering flower that the Divine King had given him from his space ring. He said, "This flower can gather the energy of the world. Shiyu, there will probably be a great battle soon. Take this flower and cultivate so that you can become an overgod as soon as possible. With your talent and the comprehension of the laws of the sword that I've engraved, it shouldn't be difficult for you to become an overgod." Shiyu's current cultivation had reached the late heavenly god realm. Chapter 1896. After leaving behind the origin gathering flower, Jianchen left and entered the forbidden grounds. Shiyu held the origin gathering flower in her hand. Even though she knew the value of the origin gathering flower and that even many Divine King experts did not possess one, her attention was not on the flower at all. She stared at Jianchen's back in a daze until Jianchen completely vanished from her sight. At this moment, the effects of the origin gathering flower were on full display. The dense origin energy that had gathered in the Tianyuan family seemed to be attracted by some mysterious power at that moment. It began to gather from all directions, gathering around the origin gathering flower in Shiyu's hand. As a result, the origin energy around the flower had already condensed into mist. It was extremely boundless. Basically, all the people who had followed Jianchen up from the Tianyuan continent had gathered in the forbidden grounds of the Tianyuan family to cultivate there. Jianchen had spent a lot of effort and resources to set up the forbidden grounds, so the origin energy there was the densest in the Tianyuan family. The entire forbidden grounds was shrouded by a layer of white mist. The white mist was naturally no ordinary mist. Instead, it was a manifestation of origin energy that had reached a certain level. Jianchen brewed himself a pot of tea in the forbidden grounds. He sat before a stone table by himself and tasted the tea carefully. He seemed extremely leisurely, but there was no relief on his face at all. He would frown at times and relax at other times. He would sink into his thoughts, and a sliver of worry would appear on his face from time to time. He seemed to have a lot on his mind. Now that the Tianyuan family has gained a firm foothold in the divine kingdom of Pingtian, it really hasn't been easy for the clan to develop to this point. I hope we can survive the invasion of the 3 armies of the heavenly demon religion, Jianchen murmured to himself. The fact that the 3 armies of the Empyrean demon cult were marching towards the divine kingdom of Pingtian made him feel very pressured. This was because he was not alone. He had a powerful clan behind him, and he possessed a large population. It had not been easy for him to establish a foundation in the Dong and province, so it would be best if he did not have to give up. At this moment, a golden light flashed, and the golden-robed newbies suddenly appeared in front of Jianchen. He didn't stand on ceremony with Jianchen and sat down in front of Jianchen. He casually poured himself a cup of tea and said, "Brother Jianchen, you've become a busy man now. I don't get to see you often in the family. In the past few decades, I, the great newbies, have only seen you a few times." Jianchen smiled helplessly and said, "We are all people who have stepped into the divine realm. If we cultivate in seclusion, 100 years will pass in the blink of an eye. 1,000 years is just a snap of the fingers. A few dozen years is nothing. In the future, not seeing each other for thousands or even tens of thousands of years is a common thing." That does seem to make some sense. Newbies nodded in agreement. He looked at Jianchen and continued, "However, you definitely haven't called me, the great newbies, over just to catch up. There must be something else." "That's right. I called you over today because there's something I want to give you," said Jianchen. He directly tossed a space ring to Newbies. Newbies did not mind too much. In his opinion, Jianchen would probably give him some divine crystal or heavenly resource. However, when he saw what was in the space ring, he immediately paled in fright. He was so shocked that he leapt up. His face was filled with shock. Oh my God, Dubby, why is it this?" "Jianchen, Dubby, where did you get this?" Newbies widened his eyes as he stared at Jianchen in extreme shock. Disbelief filled his face. It's actually so powerful. It still has such a terrifying presence, even after it's dead. My eyes must be blurry. I must have mistaken it," murmured Newbies. His voice trembled slightly as he rubbed his eyes forcefully. He was tempted to put his entire head into the space ring so that he could take a better look. In the end, after confirming many times, he was forced to admit that everything he saw was real. It was not an illusion. The space ring contained the golden-striped silver snake from the Een Mountains of Seven's Despair. It had reached the late Divine King. "If I remember correctly, this should be of great use to you," said Jianchen. Newbies nodded firmly. He said excitedly, "It's not just great use. It's basically a great fortune for me. If I absorb the essence, my bloodline will become even more powerful and terrifying. My strength will undergo an overwhelming change as well." "Jianchen, where did you get this corpse from? It was an overgod at the very least when it was alive." Jianchen shook his head. "When it was alive, it was already at the late Divine King. It was just that it was slain by an even more terrifying expert, so I picked up the corpse along the way." "What? The late Divine King?" Newbies was dumbfounded. He was shocked. The Divine King was like a legendary figure to him. Jian Chen's expression suddenly became solemn as he said, "The background of this golden-striped silver snake is not simple at all. In order to avoid any accidents, you need to absorb the essence of life that is beneficial to you as soon as possible, and then completely destroy the corpse. You can't leave behind even the slightest trace, or else we will be in huge trouble." Nubis understood the severity of the matter when he saw how stern Jianchen was. He said, "Don't worry. The great Nubis, will never let you down. There's no time to lose. I'll go into seclusion right now." Nubis left in a hurry in excitement. Jianchen was filled with eagerness as he watched Nubis leave. He wondered just how powerful the golden-striped silver snake would become after Nubis absorbed all the essence of the late divine king. However, there was one thing he was certain about. Once Nubis emerged from seclusion, his strength would undergo an overwhelming change. It would increase drastically. At this moment, Jianchen was surprised. He looked in the direction of Shangguan Mu'er's seclusion before immediately activating all the formations in the Forbidden Grounds, isolating it from the outside world. As soon as Jianchen did that, an extremely powerful presence erupted from where Shangguan Mu'er cultivated. The presence was so powerful that it should have shaken up the entire provincial city. But since Jianchen had isolated the Forbidden Grounds with formations, the presence did not spread at all. All the people in the Forbidden Grounds were alarmed. They all emerged from their rooms and stared in Shangguan Mu'er's direction. Envy and joy filled their faces. Shangguan Mu'er had finally broken through at that moment. She had broken through the shackles of God and become an over-god. Fantastic! Mu'er has become an over-god as well. Including Shen Jian, the Tianyuan family now has 3 over-gods. Jianchen murmured to himself. He was extremely excited. In the surrounding divine kingdoms, even the most powerful over-god clans only had 2 over-gods. Chapter 1897. Shangguan Mu'er slowly emerged from her secret room in the Forbidden Grounds of the Tianyuan clan. She wore a violet dress, which perfectly outlined her devilish figure. Her black hair was draped behind her casually, and her eyes shone with enchanting light. She possessed an enchanting presence as the light flowed through her eyes. Clearly, she was unable to completely conceal her presence as she had only broken through recently. As she emerged from the room, the pressure that belonged to an over-god radiated from her body. Powerful pulses of energy would surge out from her seemingly frail body from time to time, causing her hair to ruffle and her clothes to ruffle despite the lack of wind, adding on her extraordinary and otherworldly aura. The current her appeared like a celestial fairy descending upon the mortal world. The people from the Tianyuan continent immediately went up to receive her and congratulated her. Even Shen Jian hurried over personally. The Tianyuan family had gained another over-god. This was an extremely important matter to the Tianyuan family. It possessed extraordinary significance. After some small talk, everyone dispersed, leaving some space for Jianchen and Shangguan Mu'er. Jianchen and Shangguan Mu'er held hands and made their way out of the Forbidden Grounds. They strolled through the fragrant garden as they spoke softly and smiled faintly. They talked about some matters between a married couple, as well as the current threat of the Tianyuan family and the heavenly demon religion, as well as the future direction of the Tianyuan family. Jianchen, if the heavenly demon religion can't stop them, you can't force yourself. Just retreat with the people of the clan, Shangguan Mu'er persuaded him. She was rather worried. She understood how reluctant Jianchen was to part with the Tianyuan family from their conversation. The Tianyuan family had been established in the Dong and province, so the province naturally held special significance to the Tianyuan family. It could be described as the ancestral land of the Tianyuan family. After all, they had all appeared in the Dong and province when they entered the Saints' world from the Tianyuan continent. Jianchen naturally had some special feelings for the province. I still don't want to give up on this place until the very end. Although we've already chosen the Heavenly Moon Empire as our path of retreat, The Tianyuan family might not be as stable there as they are in the Dong'an province. Jianqin said sternly as if he was burdened with worry. Shangguan Mu. Er's eyes shone as she stared into Jianqin's eyes seriously. She asked gently, "Are you worried about the Earth Spirit sect of the Heavenly Moon Empire?" The Earth Spirit sect is one of the two great sects of the Heavenly Moon Empire. Even the imperial family of the Heavenly Moon Empire has to show some respect to the Earth Spirit sect. As a result, it's extremely likely for the Earth Spirit sect to possess a primordial realm expert. Jianqin frowned and continued, "If I were alone, there would obviously be no need for me to fear them. But I have my entire clan with me after all. If we enter the Heavenly Moon Empire and the Earth Spirit sect purposefully makes things difficult for us, we can only become enemies with the Earth Spirit sect. With our current strength, it's impossible for us to be the Earth Spirit sect's opponent. Jianqin, have you ever considered that by the time we become complete enemies with the Earth Spirit sect, you might already possess strength no weaker than the primordial realm and no longer fear the Earth Spirit sect? As for me, it's impossible for me to remain stagnant," said Shangguan Mu. Afterwards, the zither of the demonic cry appeared in Shangguan Mu's hand. She stared at the zither with mixed feelings and said, "This zither is very extraordinary. Even with my strength as an overgod, I still can't understand it completely. Whenever my strength increases by a level, I will learn the cultivation method for the next level from the zither. Right now, I've already obtained a cultivation method that can directly allow me to reach the Divine King's level of cultivation. As long as I have enough time, I'm confident that I can fend off the Earth Spirit sect." Jianqin was surprised when he heard that. He studied the zither of the demonic cry carefully, and only after quite a while did he say sternly, "This zither is indeed extraordinary. I can't tell what grade it is either, but I can be certain that it's not a saint artifact. It's extremely likely for it to be a god artifact." Afterwards, Jianqin frowned again. "But if it's a god artifact, I can't sense any of the characteristics of a god artifact from this zither. May I take a look at this zither?" At this moment, Kea walked over from afar in a blue dress. She stared at the zither of the demonic cry. "Kea, you've actually woken up?" Shangguan Mu was stunned as she asked in surprise. All of them knew exactly how Jianqin had brought the unconscious Kea to the saint's world in the crystal coffin. Kea arrived before Shangguan Mu and studied the zither of the demonic cry for quite a while. She frowned slightly and said, "Why do I find this zither a little familiar?" Kea frowned and thought, but soon after she shook her head. "Maybe it's because I saw you use this zither on the Tianyuan continent, which is why I find this zither a little familiar. I don't know why, but after I woke up after being in a coma for 100 years, I felt like I had forgotten something. There's some things that I can't remember clearly. It's a kind of hazy feeling. It's probably because your soul was too heavily injured, so it left behind some residual effects," Jianqin said after some thought. Kea was clearly only a holy emperor, yet she had only woken up after using so many priceless heavenly resources. He could only understand that the injuries to Kea's soul were unprecedentedly severe. "Kea, I've prepared some divine crystals for you here. I've also prepared a few cultivation methods for you. They can directly allow you to reach over God. Take one that's suitable for you." Jianqin passed a space ring to Kea. "Jianqin, I already owe you enough." "I can't take anything else from you," Kea declined. Her feelings were rather mixed. She discovered that she suddenly felt some resistance towards Jianqin's gifts from the depths of her heart. "Take it. There's no need to be so polite between friends." However, Jianqin shoved the space ring into Kea's hands. Kea stared at the space ring in her hand in a rather stunned manner. Her feelings became more and more mixed. At that moment, she actually wanted to immediately return the space ring to Jianqin. She did not know why she would think something like that. It seemed to be an instinctive thought, which made her feel rather lost. However, in the end, She clenched the space ring tightly with extremely mixed feelings. "I'm going to take a stroll in the provincial city," Kea said gently before turning around and making her way out. "Hold on." Jian Chen stopped Kea and passed a medallion to her. He said, "This is my medallion. Take it with you. If you come across any problems in the provincial city, just show it to me." Kea took the medallion and studied it carefully before leaving silently. "Jian Chen, why do I feel like Kea has become slightly different after waking up?" Shangguan Mu asked after Kea had left. Chapter 1898. Let's give Kea some time to calm down first. She's different from us. We came to the Saints' world completely willingly, while Kea was brought here by you without any consciousness at all. It'll obviously be very difficult for her to adapt to this foreign world. She might not even be able to accept it. However, all of this will change with time. I think it'll only take a few months for Kea to completely adapt to the environment of the Saints' world, said Shangguan Mu. Even though she did not have a particularly close relationship with Kea, they came from the same world after all. In the vast and foreign world of the Saints' world, every single person from the Tianyuan continent would make them feel close to each other. I wonder whether I was right or wrong to bring Kea to the Saints' world. But if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have been able to awaken Kea at all, Jianchen murmured as he gazed in the direction that Kea had vanished in. His feelings were rather mixed. However, he calmed down very soon. He said to Shangguan Mu, the heavenly demon religion has invaded the divine kingdom of Pingtian, and the divine king has summoned us to the royal capital to discuss important matters. Mu, I need to go to the royal capital immediately. Do you need me to go with you? I can help out a little now. Shangguan Mu looked at Jianchen. In the past few years, the development of the Tianyuan family had been solely supported by Jianchen. They basically did nothing at all. Now that she had become an overgod, she hoped that she could share some of the pressure with Jianchen. Jianchen shook his head. At a time like this, it's best if we don't expose the true strength of our Tianyuan family. It might be able to come in handy at crucial moments. I'll go to the royal capital alone. You stay in the clan and watch over it just in case. With that, Jianchen took out the supreme quality saint artifact that Fairy Haiyue had given him from his space ring. He said, Mu, this is a supreme quality saint artifact. It possesses extremely great defensive abilities. The battle is about to begin, so refine it immediately. Only you can use the armor to its greatest effect. You should keep it. You're the true pillar of the Tianyuan family right now. Shangguan Mu said gently and pushed the armor before Jianchen. Jianchen smiled indifferently and forcefully shoved the armor into Shangguan Mu's hands. He said, Don't worry about me. My chaotic body is about to break through, so this armor isn't very useful to me. Mu! Listen to me and refine the armor as soon as I leave. Do you understand? Now that you have the protection of this armor, I can relax a lot. It will allow me to focus on the enemy without any worries. Afterwards, Jianchen left the Dong and province and directly made his way to the royal capital of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Kai wore an aqua blue dress as she strolled through the provincial city by herself. She looked at the people who came and went on the wide streets of the provincial city. She looked at the dazzling array of shops and peddlers on the two sides of the streets, as well as the sounds of hawking and chatting rang out in her ears. Gradually, confusion appeared in her eyes. Occasionally, she would raise her head to look at the sky. She stared at the sky that was completely blue. Her gaze seemed to pierce through the sky and into the depths of outer space. The clamorous sounds in the county city, as well as the various people shuttling through the streets and alleys, made her feel extremely unfamiliar. However, when she raised her head to look at the sky that was clearly foreign to her was the exact opposite. It actually gave her a sense of familiarity. This sense of familiarity came from the very bottom of her heart. It made her feel lost and confused. She had no idea why she would feel like this. Suddenly, Kea stood on the busy streets and slowly extended her slender hand towards the sky above her. She clenched her fingers gently before pulling downwards. She had done this completely subconsciously because she had a feeling that the space there was very fragile. She could rip it open with a casual wave of her hand and destroy it with a raise of her hand. However, the result was very clear. Not only did she fail to rip open the sky, but she did not even cause the space to ripple at all. Instead, it made her actions seem so strange. Countless people on the streets stared at her with strange gazes. Kea did not seem to sense the surroundings at all. She looked at her hand, and the confusion in her eyes became even heavier. At that moment, a thought became stronger and stronger in her heart. It was as if she had really forgotten something, as if she had lost something. However, no matter how she racked her brains and tried to remember, she could not remember anything at all. Furthermore, she tried to recall everything that had happened since she was born. She discovered that she did not lose any of her memories. Apart from the 100 years she had spent in a coma, she could clearly remember everything that had happened. Kea leapt up. With her holy emperor's strength, she easily landed on the roof of a nearby shop. She hugged her knees and sat down. She raised her head and stared blankly at the sky. This shop belonged to the Tianyuan family. Kea, directly standing on the roof of the shop, would naturally be seen as disrespectful to the Tianyuan family by many people. A white-bearded old man immediately levitated into the air from the shop, but he did not dare to exceed the height of the shop. He stared at Kaya furiously as she sat on the roof and bellowed out, "How dare you! Back off!" However, before the old man could finish speaking, an extremely dignified voice rang out in his head. A ruddy, sagely old man hovered in the sky to one side. His robes fluttered in the wind, and his presence was otherworldly. He seemed like an immortal. The old man was one of the elders of the Tianyuan family Ando Fu. Jianchen was worried about leaving Kea alone in the provincial city, so after giving her an identity medallion, he also got Ando Fu to protect her secretly. This was because Kea was just too weak right now. She had not even touched upon the origin realm, only at the level of a holy emperor. It would naturally be extremely dangerous for her to move about in the provincial city with such strength. The old man who had emerged from the shop was at the peak of reciprocity. After seeing Ando Fu, he immediately became respectful and no longer dared to say anything more. He returned to where he had come from. Kea did not seem to sense anything at all. She continued to stare at the sky in a daze, as if there was nothing else in her eyes other than the unfamiliar, yet slightly familiar sky. Jianchen had already arrived in the royal capital of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Under the lead of 2 palace maids, he directly entered the central hall of the royal palace. When Jianchen entered the hall, he discovered that there were already over a dozen people seated there. They all sat on the chairs with their eyes closed. When Jianchen appeared, all of them opened their eyes and stared at him. Many of them smiled and nodded at Jianchen kindly. These people were not unfamiliar. Jianchen had seen them all before. They were the overgods of the divine kingdom of Pingtian. At this moment, all the known overgods of the divine kingdom of Pingtian had gathered in the main hall aside from Ling Hogong from the sword-seeking province. Chapter 1899. Yang Kai was the ancestor of the Yang family in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. He had reached late overgod many years ago. Not only was he renowned in the divine kingdom of Pingtian, but he was even renowned and influential in the surrounding divine kingdoms. Moreover, Yang Kai was known as the greatest expert below the divine king in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Both his status and influence directly surpassed the commander of the royal divine army, Xiando, who was at the same level of cultivation as him. Even though this was due to Xiando always keeping a low profile and never being competitive, many people believed that Xiando was not as great as Yang Kai, which was why he kept such a low profile. As a result, Yang Kai's fame in the divine kingdom of Pingtian was like the midday sun. Only the divine king and the grand imperial protector could suppress him. His fame brought the Yang family countless benefits. allowing them to sit on the throne of the greatest clan in the divine kingdom of Pingtian for many years. They enjoyed great glory and were respected and revered by everyone. However, all of this changed with the battle between the ancestor of the Yang family, Yang Kai, and the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianqin. In that battle, Yang Kai, who is known as the greatest expert below the Divine King, had actually been defeated by the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianqin, who had only made a name for himself a few decades ago. Not only did Yang Kai lose his status as the greatest expert below the Divine King, but his reputation was damaged as well. Even the Yang family was greatly affected. Their status was nowhere near as great as before. This was a humiliation to Yang Kai, a humiliation that he would never be able to wash away. Although he was a late over god who had cultivated for who knows how many years, he was not a forgiving person. The humiliation he felt after his defeat gradually turned into hatred. Naturally, he was unable to get along well with Jianqin now that he saw him. Jianqin remained the same as before. He glanced past Yang Kai indifferently before smiling apologetically. He clasped his fist at the overgods in the hall and said, "It's been a long journey, so I've wasted some time. I apologize for making you wait." Ha ha ha! The patriarch of the Tianyuan clan is far too polite. It's only 3 days. To us, it's just the blink of an eye. Brother Jianqin, you're scolding me. I just arrived not long before you. According to what you're saying, I've made everyone wait for a long time. The overgods all stood up when they heard Jianqin's words. They all clasped their fists towards Jianqin with smiles as they spoke extremely politely. Jianqin was clearly much more powerful than Yang Kai in the divine kingdom of Pingtian right now. Aside from Yang Kai, all the overgods present showed him respect. On the other hand, when Yang Kai saw that there were actually so many people supporting Jianqin, his face instantly became extremely gloomy. Jianqin ignored Yang Kai. After exchanging some pleasantries with everyone, he directly made his way to his seat and sat down. The seats were split into 2 rows. The center was a corridor, and every single seat had a name engraved on it. Jianqin's seat happened to be the first on the right. It was also the seat closest to the Divine King's dragon throne. Xian Do sat in the second seat, right next to Jianqin. Yang Kai sat in the first seat on the left. Now that Jianqin had sat down, he was directly facing Yang Kai. Yang Kai glanced at Jianqin coldly before closing his eyes. Jianqin did not take Yang Kai seriously either. Yang Kai was not his opponent in the past, and now that his strength had increased by quite a lot, Yang Kai was even less of an opponent. Jianqin also sat down on the spacious and luxurious chair. He closed his eyes and rested as he waited for the Divine King's arrival quietly. Immediately, the hall that had been bustling with Jianqin's arrival fell silent once again. It was so quiet that even the drop of a pin could be heard. "His Majesty has arrived!" At this moment, a loud and vigorous voice broke the silence in the main hall. The overgods who sat there all opened their eyes at the same time at that moment. All of them stood up from their chairs. The Divine King strode over in his dragon crown and dragon robes. He did not walk quickly, but every step he took seemed to resonate with the hearts of all the overgods gathered there. Every single step seemed to land on the hearts of all the overgods, forming a tremendous pressure that enveloped everyone. All the overgods gathered in the hall held their breaths at this moment. They showed a sliver of respect as they could not help but lower their heads and nod slightly. The light in Jianqin's eyes flickered as he lowered his head slightly as well. However, he murmured inside, "The Divine King is so powerful. Probably even the 9 late Divine King experts I saw in the Yin Mountains of Seven's Despair are not as powerful as him." Jianqin knew that late Divine King experts differed drastically in strength. All the people who could sit on the throne of the Divine King, regardless of whether they were ranked or not, possessed strength equivalent to late Divine King experts. Those who were ranked on the throne of the Divine King would still possess cultivation equivalent to late Divine King experts. But those who ranked in the top 10 would possess strength equivalent to early Primordial Realm experts. The best among them could directly kill Primordial Realm experts with strength equivalent to late Divine King experts. It was extremely impressive. I wonder if the Divine King has sat on the throne of the Divine King, Genshin thought. He still did not know the exact strength of the Divine King, but he could sense an unfathomable feeling from the Divine King. Greetings to your majesty. The overgods below all bowed towards the Divine King after he sat down on the dragon throne. There's no need to be so courteous. Please sit down. The Divine King was dignified and amiable. He smiled faintly. I am sure all of you have guessed the main reason why I've gathered all of you here in the Imperial City. Next, allow me to explain the strength of the 3 armies of the heavenly demon religion in detail, the Divine King said calmly. Even when he mentioned the 3 armies that would cause the expressions of many Divine Kings to change, he remained composed. His expression did not change at all. Looking at how confident the Divine King is, it seems like he has complete confidence in stopping the attacks of the heavenly demon religion. Are those ancient empires really going to take action? Jianchen guessed inside as he observed the Divine King's expression the entire time. The heavenly demon religion has a total of 9 armies. Aside from the first army, the other 8 are basically all on par with each other in strength. The commander of the 9th army, Yan Wuming, is a late Divine King. People call him the Blood God's Hand because Yan Wuming knows an extremely powerful God-tier battle skill. Once he uses it, the world will turn scarlet as blood-red light will fill the sky. It can condense into a huge red hand with extremely shocking power. Very few people in the Divine King realm can stop Yan Wuming unless they're experts who have made it to the Divine King's throne. The commander of the 8th army, Luo Duo, is a late Divine King. People call him the Bloodthirsty Butcher. He's cold, cruel, and extremely bloodthirsty. He once invaded a divine kingdom all by himself and slaughtered over 1 billion people. Wherever he passed by, no one survived. The boundless, baleful aura he gave off caused all the vegetation in the divine kingdom to lose their vitality. The commander of the 7th army, Yaxilian, is a late divine king. She's a woman, but she's transformed from a 9-tailed fox. Although she's the person with the weakest battle prowess in the 9 armies, she's the most cunning and the most difficult to deal with. She's naturally lustful and skilled in bewitchment. It's extremely easy for people with weak wills to lose their rationality under her bewitchment. The Divine King became stern when he reached there. He stared at the overgods below before looking at Genshin in the end. He warned seriously, "Once you come across the commander of the 7th army, you have to be extremely careful. It's best if you don't look at her or listen to anything she says. With your strength, it's very easy for you to be bewitched by her every word and action. That's because some Divine King experts will fall for her tricks easily if their wills aren't firm enough." Chapter 1900. In particular, Genshin. Yaxilian likes extremely talented and outstanding geniuses. If Yaxilian learns about your deeds, she'll definitely pay special attention to you. As a result, you need to be careful of this person. The Divine King warned Genshin sternly. "Thank you for your warning, Your Majesty. I will be careful," Genshin apologized. He was extremely stern. He did not believe that the Divine King was lying. If the commander of the 7th army really did set his eyes on him, it would definitely be a huge problem for him. This was because the Divine Kingdom of Pingtian only possessed 2 Divine King experts. The 3 armies of the heavenly demon religion were all late Divine King experts. Apart from the Divine King, who Genshin was unable to see through, Genshin could vaguely sense the Grand Imperial Protector. Even though the Grand Imperial Protector was also a Divine King, he was not the opponent of any of the commanders of the 3 armies of the heavenly demon religion. The Divine King continued, Every single army of the heavenly demon religion has a fixed number of 100,000 people. However, any one of the 9 armies can easily wipe out an army of tens of millions of our divine kingdom of Pingtian. A mere 100,000 people could easily wipe out an army of tens of millions. This was definitely a shocking matter. Many of the overgods present became extremely stern when they heard that. Even though they already knew about the strength of the 9 armies of the heavenly demon religion, they still struggled to remain calm whenever they heard someone mention them. Your Majesty, the 3 armies of the heavenly demon religion are attacking our divine kingdom of Pingtian. We won't be able to fend them off at all. An overgod said sorrowfully. A few of the people present were already thinking about retreating. Once the meeting ended, they would secretly evacuate with their clans. They would give up on everything here and leave the divine kingdom of Pingtian. The divine king said calmly, "The invasion of the heavenly demon religion is indeed a difficult battle for our divine kingdom of Pingtian, but it's only a difficult battle. It's definitely not a battle of destruction. The heavenly demon religion can't destroy our divine kingdom of Pingtian because the ancient empires have already sent reinforcements. They're on their way. Even the ruler of the southern region, the Blood Sun Empire, is paying attention to the situation here at all times. The destruction of the divine kingdom of 3 cauldrons is already the bottom line of the heavenly demon religion. It's impossible for them to allow the heavenly demon religion to continue acting so fearlessly." What? The empires have already sent reinforcements? The Blood Sun Empire is also paying attention? Your Majesty, is that true? Will the Blood Sun Empire send reinforcements to assist us? I never thought that the Blood Sun Empire would be so relaxed about this matter. If they interfere, the threat of the heavenly demon religion will be eliminated immediately. If the Blood Sun Empire sends reinforcements, we can launch a counterattack on the headquarters of the heavenly demon religion and uproot the heavenly demon religion. All the overgods were overjoyed. Without a doubt, the divine king's words were great news to them. They had seen a ray of hope in the darkness. In particular, the Blood Sun Empire excited them. They were the rulers of the southern region of the Cloud Plain. They were so powerful that the ancient empires could not compare to them at all. Before the Blood Sun Empire, even ancient empires like the Heavenly Moon Empire had to bow their heads. The Heavenly Moon Empire was only an ancient empire. There were 6 of them in the entire southern region, while the Blood Sun Empire was known as an eternal empire. They were the only eternal empire in the southern region. Only Genshin's face did not change at all among them. He was still stern, and his brows were tightly furrowed. He knew that even if the empires sent reinforcements, they would only be able to protect the divine kingdom of Pingtian at most. As for launching a counterattack on the heavenly demon religion or uprooting the heavenly demon religion, that was impossible, let alone the eternal Blood Sun Empire in the southern region. Even the so-called Eternal Tian Empire that had existed for countless years in the central region did not have the courage to do that. This was because he had learnt some secret information from the divine King Taido, who followed Tong Tian. Probably even many divine kings had never heard of the information before. The heavenly demon religion was not terrifying by itself. There were many organizations that could destroy the heavenly demon religion on the Cloud Plain. However, the great elder behind the heavenly demon religion was enough to make even the peak clans on the Cloud Plain fear him. At this moment, Genshin stood up and clasped his hands. "Your Majesty, are there no other divine king realm experts among the 3 armies that are attacking our divine kingdom of Pingtian apart from the commanders?" Genshin was indeed very doubtful. The commanders of the 3 armies of the heavenly demon religion were all late divine king realm experts. Logically speaking, there should be some early divine king realm experts or mid-divine king realm experts as their assistants. In the armies of many places, marshals had their own left and right hands, while commanders had their own vice-commanders. Did the Empyrean demon cult not have a vice-commander or something like that in their 9 powerful armies? Indeed, there's only a single divine king realm expert in each of the 9 armies of the heavenly demon religion, and they're all late divine king realm experts. The divine king sank into his thoughts and said slowly, according to my understanding of the heavenly demon religion, the heavenly demon religion also has a hall of protectors apart from the 9 armies. Once an overgod of the 9 armies breaks through to divine king realm, they will immediately leave the army and enter the Hall of Protectors as a protector. At the same time, every single protector is a candidate for the commander of the 9 armies. Once a commander dies in battle, the new commander will be chosen from the protectors. Your Majesty, may I ask just how many protectors there are in the Hall of Protectors? Bing Lu asked from the Yubing clan of the frigid snow province. He no longer seemed as old as before. A faint, red light appeared on his face. Clearly, Bing Lu's strength had increased by quite a lot in the past few years. He had reached mid-overgod now. This time, the Divine King fell into a very long period of silence. Only after quite a while did he sigh gently. Probably even the experts of the empires won't be able to answer that question. However, you don't have to worry about that. All you need to know is that the heavenly demon religion can't take down our divine kingdom of Pingtian. I only need you to use your full strength when the battle begins. Don't let the people from the other empires look down on us. I've said everything that needs to be said. You can all go and make arrangements. Prepare for battle. The Divine King waved his hand and ended the meeting. After the meeting, everyone, including Jianqin, thought about the heavenly demon religion's Hall of Protectors. Their faces changed constantly. From the Divine King's expression, he clearly knew a little about the Hall of Protectors. Otherwise, he would not have remained silent for so long. It looks like the heavenly demon religion should have quite a few protectors in the Hall of Protectors. Many overgods reached this conclusion, and they all became extremely stern. Even the protectors have formed a hall. Just how many divine king experts are there in the heavenly demon religion? Jianqin guessed inside as well. He was shocked. From the beginning to the end, no one mentioned the matter of Jianqin killing the 3 overgods of the heavenly demon religion. Even Yang Kai, who hated Jianqin, did not mention it. This was because all of them knew that the attack of the 3 armies of the heavenly demon religion on the divine kingdom of Pingtian had nothing to do with the 3 overgods, let alone the fact that 3 overgods were not worth the heavenly demon religion going to such great lengths and directly mobilizing the 3 armies. Moreover, they had received the latest news that the heavenly demon religion had not only mobilized the 7th, 8th, and 9th armies. The other 6 armies had all been mobilized. Chapter 1901. People constantly entered and exited the provincial city of the Dong and province through the huge city gates. Large numbers of armored soldiers were stationed at every single gate, and there were even deities secretly on guard. As one of the 6 great provincial cities of the divine kingdom of Pingtian, the Dong and province was also where the overgod organization, the Tianyuan clan, resided. It was renowned and could attract countless people every day. Of course, there were naturally many people who came to trade or seek refuge. They used the prohibition of fighting in the provincial city to avoid being hunted down by their enemies. Anyone who entered the provincial city would have to pay a certain amount of divine crystals in exchange for a medallion from the soldiers at the gates. They would use the medallion to purchase the number of days they could stay in the city. Not only was there a ban on speaking within the county city, fighting was also prohibited. Furthermore, there was an abundance of essence energy within the county city. Cultivating within the county city would allow one to progress much faster than cultivating outside. Furthermore, there was no need to worry about being attacked by powerful wild beasts. As a result, many people were extremely willing to cultivate in the provincial city. Although there would be people who would ignore the prohibition set down by the Tianyuan family from time to time and directly injure people in the provincial city, this was extremely rare. In short, staying in the provincial city was still much safer than staying in the wilderness. Today, Chanlong, who is known as a formations master, wore white robes at the eastern gate of the provincial city. He concealed his presence and kept an extremely low profile as he squeezed with the people who were about to enter the city. He slowly approached the eastern gate with the group. Master! Chanlong seemed like an ordinary old man right now. He did not stand out at all as he stood in the crowd. It was very difficult to imagine that he was actually a late over god, a renowned formations master in the surrounding divine kingdoms. It was even more unimaginable that with his current strength and status, he would actually choose to line up like an ordinary person when he entered the provincial city. He would only enter after paying divine crystals for a medallion that allowed him to stay in the city. I've already entered the provincial city. I've concealed my presence with a secret technique, so even if Jianqin is still in the city, he won't be able to discover me. Where is the chance of survival you spoke of? Master Chanlong strolled through the streets of the Dong and province leisurely. He had already secretly communicated with the trapped soul. Master Chanlong's emotions became rather mixed as he looked at the scenery in the provincial city. In the past, he had even ambushed Jianqin here, casting down a formation to seal up the entire city. He wanted to kill Jianqin here. Unfortunately, Jianqin sensed him first and fled from the city. In the end, he engaged in an intense battle with Jianqin 100 kilometers away. Master Chanlong had almost killed Jianqin in that battle. He had also almost died to Jianqin. Now that he had come to the provincial city again, his intentions were no longer to kill Jianqin. Instead, he was looking for the chance of survival that the trapped soul had mentioned. Jianqin's talent was just too great, and his growth was just too fast, coupled with the fact that the trapped soul constantly chattered in his ear, "Old man Chanlong, you better cherish your last few years. I can already see your future. You'll only live for 100 years at most. Old man Chanlong, I can already see Jianqin piercing your forehead with a finger and wiping out your soul. Old man Chanlong, I can already see Jianqin beheading you in a single stroke." These words gradually influenced Master Chanlong as well. As a result, Master Chanlong believed the trapped soul at all. In order to prevent himself from dying to Jianqin's hands in the next few decades, Master Chanlong had come all the way from the Heavenly Moon Empire to the provincial city. In the past few years, Master Chanlong had gained a deep understanding of the power of a trapped soul. He really did seem to have the ability to see the future. Everything he said would come true in the end. The heavenly secrets of the Dong and province are chaotic, as if it's shrouded by a layer of mist. I can only see that the chance of survival lies in the provincial city, but I can't see where it is exactly. Old man Chanlong, it'll be up to your luck now. I can't help you with anything anymore, said the trapped soul. Master Chanlong said nothing. Before long, he entered an inn. In order to not raise any suspicion, he only booked a medium-sized room. Afterwards, he ordered some side dishes on the first floor before sitting in a remote corner and eating. Of course, this was all just a disguise. Places like inns had a lot of people, so it was very suitable for gathering information. He firmly believed that if the Dong and province really did possess a chance of survival, it would not be peaceful. Something abnormal or special would definitely happen. After arriving here, Master Chanlong became cautious. He kept an extremely low profile, and he did not even show himself. He did not even dare to use the senses of his soul, as he was afraid that Jianqin would still be in the provincial city and discover his existence. Once the news that he had entered the divine kingdom of Pingtian was leaked, the Grand Imperial Protector would hunt him down. Otherwise, there would be no need for him to go through so much trouble to gather information as a late over god. At the same time, Kea strolled through the streets aimlessly in the provincial city. She would look at the surroundings from time to time and look at the sky from time to time. Her gaze was rather lost. She had already walked like this for 2 whole days. Of course, with her strength as a holy emperor, she would not feel tired at all even if she walked for 2 years, let alone 2 days. Just when Kea passed by an ordinary inn, her gaze seemed to be attracted by something. She suddenly looked at the inn and actually walked in involuntarily. When a person entered a completely unfamiliar environment, their first reaction was to subconsciously look around and observe their surroundings. However, Kea actually did not look around at all after entering the inn. Her gaze clearly seemed to be attracted by something, so she directly looked at an inconspicuous corner. To no surprise, that was where Master Chanlong sat. Kea's gaze directly locked onto Master Chanlong. She stared at Master Chanlong blankly as a sliver of confusion gradually appeared in her eyes. At the same time, Master Chanlong raised his head as well. He stared at Kea calmly. With this one glance, he could no longer shift his gaze away. As a late over-god, he did not pay attention to a mere holy emperor at all. Even if the holy emperor looked at him, he would not care at all. However, the moment Kea entered the inn, Master Chanlong actually raised his head involuntarily, as if he could not control himself. His gaze landed on Kea. What a weak cultivation. Strange, who is this person? Why does old man feel a hint of familiarity when he sees her? Master Chanlong stared at Kea as doubt filled his eyes. Old man Chanlong, have you noticed that woman? Who is she? Why do I feel a sense of familiarity when she appears? But I've clearly never seen her before. At the same time, the trapped soul said. Her voice was filled with doubt. At this moment, Kea moved as well. She arrived before Master Chanlong steadily and stared at Master Chanlong in confusion. She asked gently, "Who are you? Have we met somewhere before?" As she said that, Kea glanced at the space ring on Master Chanlong's finger from time to time. Chapter 1902. Master Chanlong's heart shuddered slightly when he heard Kea's words. The light in his eyes flickered as he stared at Kea. His expression became rather strange. Afterwards, he frowned slightly as he sank into his thoughts and became confused. He felt a strange sense of familiarity the moment he saw Kea. The reason why he felt this sense of familiarity was because he was certain that he had never seen the woman before him before. Ignoring the fact that he, Chanlong, had never had a true friend ever since he started cultivating, and Kea was still so weak. Chanlong's strength was simply too weak. Even if he had seen a mere holy emperor somewhere before, he would not take him seriously. A person like that was just an ant in his eyes. An ant would naturally not give him the slightest sense of familiarity. However, strangely enough, not only did he feel a strange sense of familiarity towards Kea, but Kea also seemed to feel a sense of familiarity towards him that even she could not explain. This left Master Chanlong rather perplexed. Aside from that, what Master Chanlong found the most unbelievable was that even the soul he had trapped in the formation banners in his space ring, acting as the formation spirit, actually felt a sense of familiarity towards Kea as well. This made the matter much more complicated. "Who are you?" Master Chanlong replied with a question. He stared at Kea without blinking at all. At that moment, even he, a mighty late over-god, became rather confused. "I'm Kea." Kea also stared at Master Chanlong. She would glance at the space ring on Master Chanlong's finger from time to time, and she said with interest, "There seems to be something in your space ring that I find rather familiar as well." The feeling is just like yours." Master Chanlong was shocked by Kea's words. His old eyes immediately widened as he stared at Kea in shock. He found it hard to believe. Naturally, he knew what Kea found familiar in his space ring. It was definitely the soul trapped within the formation banners that could foresee the future. How can this woman sense what's in my space ring, let alone a mere holy emperor like her? Even the divine king doesn't possess such abilities. Master Chanlong struggled to remain calm. He secretly communicated with the trapped primordial spirit. "Old man Chanlong, don't ask me. I don't know what's going on either. I can't see through this woman at all. She's like a ball of mist," said the trapped soul. Master Chanlong remained silent for a while before calming down slowly. He looked at Kea with mixed feelings and curiosity. The sense of familiarity he felt towards Kea grew stronger and stronger from the bottom of his heart. It affected Master Chanlong imperceptibly, causing his attitude towards Kea to change silently. Master Chanlong invited Kea to sit down. He did not put on any airs as an over-god at all. He conversed with Kea in an amiable manner as if they were friends who had not seen each other for many years. Who is this woman called Kea? Who is she? I've clearly never seen her before. So why do I feel like she's familiar? As Chanlong and Kea conversed, the trapped soul remained in the space ring. He constantly murmured to himself as he scratched his head. He was unable to understand what was going on no matter how he thought about it. On the other side, Kea and Master Chanlong became closer and closer. The sense of familiarity between them grew stronger and stronger as well. There was no gap between them at all. This gave the two of them a strange feeling. It was as if they had always been close friends. Kea, it looks like we really are fated to meet. However, you're weak right now, so it's very easy for you to come across danger. I can't be by your side at all times either. Take these 3 defensive formation discs. Every single one of them can block a single strike from a late over god. Take this jade pendant with you at all times as well. It can save your life when you need it. These high-grade divine crystals can allow your strength to increase rapidly. Master Chanlong took out a large pile of items from his space ring and placed them before Kea. Master Chanlong himself found it rather hard to believe that he would actually give so many things to someone he had just met. If this had happened before today, he would have never believed that he would be so generous. The high-grade divine crystals were nothing to him, but the 3 defensive formation discs that could block a single strike from a late over god were priceless items. Every single one of them was extremely difficult to create. The jade pendant was even more valuable. Not only was it a high-quality saint artifact, but it was also a treasure that could actively defend. Once it was attacked, the formations on the jade pendant would be activated automatically, forming an extremely powerful barrier of light. If its defenses were pushed to the limit, it could even last a while against regular late over gods. Without any exaggeration, the items Master Chanlong had given him were close to 1/4 of his wealth. However, Master Chanlong just happened to want to help Kea as much as he could after seeing how weak he was. This was just like how Jianqin treated his friends and family. He was selfless, always thinking of ways to use all the resources at his disposal to make them stronger. Senior Chanlong, thank you for your good intentions, but I can't accept so many of your items for no reason. Moreover, I don't lack these items. Jianqin has given me quite a few, Kea said gratefully as he pushed all the items to Master Chanlong. What, Jianqin? The patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianqin? A gleam of light flashed through Master Chanlong's eyes, and he became stern. Yeah, the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianqin. He's my friend, said Kea. Master Chanlong's face immediately became uncertain. At the same time, a streak of light shot through the sky outside the provincial city. With a flash, it entered the provincial city in the blink of an eye. Jianqin had already returned from the royal city. He stood on the startling rainbow sword and entered the provincial city as a resplendent streak of light. I wonder how Kea has been in the past few days. Has she accepted the saint's world, which is an extremely foreign world to her? As soon as he entered the provincial city, Jianqin thought of Kea. He flew towards the Tianyuan family on the startling rainbow sword. At the same time, he expanded the senses of his soul, enveloping the entire city as he searched for Kea's location. He found Kea with the senses of his soul as a late over god effortlessly. However, his face suddenly changed, and cold killing intent immediately appeared in his eyes. He said coldly, Chanlong, you're looking to die. Jianqin's path suddenly changed, and his speed suddenly skyrocketed. Sword chi permeated his surroundings as the startling rainbow sword shone brightly. He turned into a streak of light and shot towards Kea with unbelievable speed. At the same time, Master Chanlong discovered Jianqin's arrival as well. His face immediately became stern, and an azure disc appeared in his right hand. It shone with dazzling azure light as countless profound inscriptions flickered. Chapter 1903. Oh no! Jianshin has already discovered you. He's extremely powerful now. Old man Chanlong, if you had the chance to kill Jianshin or escape from Jianshin in the past, you definitely won't be Jianshin's opponent today. He really is a supreme prodigy after all. His strength has increased far too quickly, the soul murmured to himself. There was some amazement in his voice. Even across the entire Saints world, there were only a handful of people who possessed talent as great as Jianshin. However, the trapped soul frowned soon afterwards. But this doesn't make sense. I clearly saw a sliver of hope in the Dong and province, so why did I encounter Jianshin now? Now that I've encountered Jianshin, what chance is there? You've always been quite accurate with your calculations in the past, but you've clearly miscalculated this time. However, it's no big deal. Even if Jianshin's strength has increased rapidly in the past few years, I'm not afraid of him, said Chanlong. The powerful origin energy that belonged to a late over-god surged within him secretly, surging like a river. Kea could not help but become doubtful when she saw Master Chanlong's sudden sternness and the azure disc and formation banners in his hand. She was slightly confused. Just when she was about to ask, an extremely tremendous presence suddenly crushed down from the sky. It immediately caused the expressions of everyone in the inn to change drastically. Even the inn that was protected by a layer of formations creaked as if it could not withstand the pressure. It seemed like it was about to be crushed to pieces from the tremendous presence. A resplendent streak of light shone like the sun. It shot down with lightning speed as a streak of light. It moved so quickly that it completely exceeded the range of gods. Only over-gods could sense it. In just a short instance, the streak of light directly shot into the inn where Kea resided. Kea only saw a flash before her, and a white-robed person appeared before her like he had teleported. He stood between her and Master Chanlong with his back towards her. Jianshin. Kea recognized the person almost immediately from the familiar figure. She was surprised. Kea, return to the clan first. It's not safe here, Jianshin said without any hesitation. Jianshin said without even looking back. His voice was very gentle, but he stared at Master Chanlong closely. He became cautious. He did not know about the relationship between Kea and Master Chanlong. He only knew that he could not touch Kea with Master Chanlong right now. With Kea's strength as a mere holy emperor, it was impossible for him to endure the shockwaves from a battle between over-gods. Master Chanlong, you're a renowned over-god after all. You shouldn't go so far as to threaten me with a weak woman, right? Jianshin glared at Master Chanlong and growled. Right now, he was extremely worried that Master Chanlong would attack first. He did not fear Master Chanlong at all with his current strength. As a matter of fact, he was completely capable of preventing Master Chanlong from casting formations if he used his full strength. However, with Kea beside him, Jianshin was unable to guarantee her safety. If Kea was a god, Jianshin would not have to worry so much because gods possess the power to resist. However, Kea was only a holy emperor right now. Before an over-god, a holy emperor was no different from a mortal. Jianshin, aren't you overestimating yourself? Master Chanlong sneered. That's right. Kid, you overestimate yourself. Even if you're a supreme prodigy, you still don't have the right for old man Chanlong to threaten you with someone else. Although old man Chanlong isn't much of a person, he still cares about his status at the very least, said the trapped soul. His voice drifted out from the formation banners. Kea could also hear the hostility in Jianshin and Master Chanlong's voices. She ignored Jianshin's advice and stood between them. She said to Jianshin, Jianshin, what are you doing? Chanlong is my friend. How can he use me to threaten you? You've misunderstood. Kea also realized that there was probably some grievances between Jianshin and Master Chanlong. What did you say, friend? Jianshin stared at Kea in surprise. He was stunned, basically doubting his ears. How long had it been since Kea arrived in the saint's world? How long had it been since she woke up? Moreover, the difference in strength between her and Master Chanlong was so great. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. So how could they be friends? Kea stopped the aggressive Jianqin and explained, Jianqin, I know you don't believe me. Although I've only known Chanlong for a short while, we hit it off right away. I have indeed treated Chanlong as my friend. He's my best friend aside from you. Jianqin sighed gently when he saw how serious Kea was. He did not seem like he was joking at all. He said, Kea, you still don't truly understand the person before you. Chanlong is a mighty late over-god, and he's also a formations master. Just how great is his status? Why would someone like him take you seriously? Master Chanlong said. He held the azure disc in one hand and the formation banners in the other. He said emotionlessly, Jianqin, although the old man is disdainful to explain it to you, this matter concerns Kea's trust in the old man. As a result, the old man needs to step forward and say a few words. That's right, the old man is indeed a late over-god, and he's a formations master. He's rather famous in the nearby region. However, the old man has indeed hit it off with Lady Kea at first sight. The old man has also treated Lady Kea as the old man's first friend. Jianqin sneered, Chanlong, do you think I'll believe you? You probably have other intentions for doing this. However, no matter what your intentions are, I won't let you leave so easily today. Jianqin gripped the startling rainbow sword as his presence surged. He had already locked onto Jianqin. It was also at this moment that a black figure charged into the inn with lightning speed. He arrived before Jianqin in a single instance and grabbed Kea by the shoulder, taking him out of the inn. During this time, Jianqin had always been wary of Master Chanlong, so he did not stop the black figure at all. This black figure was none other than Shen Jian, who was dressed in a black martial art suit. During the stalemate with Master Chanlong, Jianqin had already contacted Shen Jian through his soul, telling him to take action and take Kea away. With Kea present, he was always restrained. He did not dare to actually fight Chanlong. Even though this would expose Shen Jian's existence, Jianqin could not care less about Kea's safety. I never thought that the Tianyuan family would actually have a second over-god. Master Chanlong stared at Jianqin emotionlessly. Chanlong, let's settle our past grievances today. Last time, you managed to escape, but today you won't be able to escape even if you have wings. Jianqin's startling rainbow surged with light as he pointed it at Master Chanlong. You want to make old man unable to escape? Humph, Jianqin, you probably won't be able to do that with your current strength, Jianqin sneered. Master Chanlong sneered. The azure disc in his hand shone brightly, and a huge formation appeared, revolving around him. A great battle was about to erupt. However, at this moment, the expressions of both Jianqin and Chanlong changed. They both looked in the same direction. In the next moment, 7 tremendous presences flooded out, enveloping the entire provincial city in an extremely domineering manner. Every single presence possessed the strength of an over-god, and there were quite a few late over-gods among them. The 7 protectors of the Earth Spirit sect of the Heavenly Moon Empire have arrived. Who is the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan? Why don't you come out and receive us? Is the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan Jianqin present? Come out and receive us on your knees. That's right, receive us on your knees. It's best if you move quickly. Don't make us wait for too long, or don't blame us for erasing your Tianyuan family. For loud voices rang out in the sky, reaching every corner of the provincial city. They spoke in a domineering manner, as if they were above everyone else. They were arrogant and insufferably arrogant. Chapter 1904. The voices of the protectors from the Earth Spirit sect shook up the entire provincial city. At that moment, all the people in the city stopped what they were doing, regardless of how important their matters were. They stared at the sky in shock as they looked around, searching for the source of the voice. Ever since Jianqin defeated the patriarch of the Yang family, Yongkai, the Tianyuan family had become the greatest clan in the divine kingdom of Pingtian, replacing the Yang family. The patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianqin, was known as the greatest expert below the divine king in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. Let alone in the divine kingdom of Pingtian, he was a renowned figure even in the surrounding divine kingdoms. Very few people dared to provoke him. But now, not only had someone offended the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianqin, they had even spoken to him mercilessly. They had arrogantly demanded that the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan kneel to welcome them. Many people in the provincial city became rather stunned by the audacity of their actions. In particular, when they mentioned that they wanted to remove the Tianyuan family from the divine kingdom of Pingtian, it shocked all the people in the provincial city. Who are these people? Aren't they far too arrogant? Don't they know who the Tianyuan family is? They're the greatest over-god clan in the divine kingdom of Pingtian. What kind of place is the Heavenly Moon Empire? I've never heard of it. And what kind of organization is the Earth Spirit Sect? They seem pretty powerful, yet their 7 protectors are so arrogant. They don't take the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan seriously at all. The Tianyuan family is inviolable. Although I don't know who they are, I believe the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan will never let them go. The patriarch of the Tianyuan clan is a powerful, vicious person. I heard that he killed 3 overgods from the heavenly demon religion in just a few moves. That's overgods. Even in the divine kingdom of Pingtian, they would be at the very peak. There were many discussions in the provincial city. However, without any exception, most of the people had great confidence in the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianqin, against the people who had come to cause trouble. As a matter of fact, many of them were looking forward to the patriarch teaching these shameless people a lesson. Many people had never heard of the Earth Spirit Sect and Heavenly Moon Empire. Only a small portion of gods had heard of the Earth Spirit Sect, so they all became stern. They worried for the Tianyuan family. In the Wainer clan, the 2 remaining gods immediately became excited when they heard the call that rang through the entire city. The protectors of the Earth Spirit Sect are here. Xiao Yan is also a protector of the Earth Spirit Sect, so they should be Xiao Yan's fellow disciples. Quick, let's go inform Xiao Yan. The protector of the Earth Spirit Sect has come to support our Wainer clan. That's great, that's truly great. Our Wainer clan will rise again today. The 2 elders, who are even older than Wainer Yen, rushed towards where Wainer Yen cultivated as quickly as they could in excitement. At the same time, Jianqin frowned in the inn. A vicious light immediately flashed through his eyes when he heard the voices of the 7 protectors of the Earth Spirit Sect. He immediately abandoned Master Chanlong and shot off as a streak of light. Jianqin hovered above the great walls of the provincial city with the startling rainbow sword in his hand. He stared ahead, coldly and emotionlessly. Before him, 7 people in the same uniform stood with their arms crossed. They looked at Jianqin arrogantly as if they were looking down on everything. 5 of them were men. 2 of them seemed to be close to middle age. They sneered as they looked at Jianqin with undisguised coldness. The 2 of them were the most powerful out of the 7 of them. They were late overgods. The other 3 men all maintained the appearance of young men. 2 of them were early overgods, while 1 was a mid-overgod. The last 2 people were beautiful women who only seemed to be in their 20s. They wore long dresses, which accentuated their soft and graceful figures. They were quite pretty. The 2 women were both mid-overgods. As soon as we called for Jianqin from the Tianyuan family, you immediately appeared. Are you Jianqin from the Tianyuan family? An early overgod young man studied Jianqin. He crossed his arms and said leisurely. He seemed like a slob. That's right. I'm the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Jianqin. However, this is the Dong and province, not your Earth Spirit Sect. As a result, you better put away your arrogance in the Earth Spirit Sect after coming here, Jianqin said calmly. The young man smiled when he heard that. He stared at Jianqin provocatively, Oh, you're actually threatening us. However, we just happen to want to face you like that. What are you going to do about it? Junior, too. Why waste your breath on him? Jianqin, didn't you hear what we said earlier? Why don't you kneel down and receive us after seeing us 7 protectors? Another early over-god said sternly. The 5 other mid and late over-gods all hovered in the air. They stared at Jianqin coldly with their arms crossed. Their gazes were filled with threat, as if their arrogance was beneath them to speak to Jianqin. Jianqin's gaze turned cold when he faced the naked humiliation from the protectors. He said coldly, "You're just 2 ants, yet you want me to kneel down so shamelessly? Are all the people from the Earth Spirit sect like this?" Jianqin also spoke with deep disdain. He was not exaggerating. With his current strength, early over-gods were indeed no more powerful than ants in his eyes. However, the faces of the 2 early over-gods sank. Heavy killing intent filled their eyes, and they said coldly, "Jianqin, you're looking to die. I'll show you the consequences of underestimating the protectors of the Earth Spirit sect." With that, the 2 of them took out their saint artifacts and directly attacked Jianqin. Sword Qi soars to the heavens. The 2 early over-gods called out together. They swung their swords and produced 2 huge strands of sword Qi that ripped through the air, shooting towards Jianqin with lightning speed. When the 2 of them struck out, the 5 other protectors stared at Jianqin with interest. They wanted to see through Jianqin's strength through the 2 of them. They had just hurried over from the Earth Spirit sect, so they did not really understand Jianqin's true strength. They only knew that their junior, Weiner Yen, had been defeated by Jianqin several decades ago. Chapter 1905. The 2 strands of sword Qi shone with dazzling light, illuminating the surroundings. They really did possess a presence that could shake up the heavens. They were extremely sharp, and when the sword Qi shot out, it was accompanied by the clear thrum of a sword. It came from the vibrations of the swords in the hands of the 2 early over-gods. The 2 strands of sword Qi had already locked onto Jianqin's presence. They closed the distance between them in a single instant and charged towards Jianqin with an unstoppable, murderous presence. The powerful origin energy that belonged to early over-gods interweaved with the laws of the world, enveloping Jianqin like a huge net. It sealed off all of Jianqin's paths of retreat. Jianqin's eyes narrowed slightly. The 2 people before him were indeed from large sections. As soon as they began to fight, the strength they displayed was unrivaled among early over-gods. In particular, the battle skills they used right now seemed to possess the might of mid-over-gods. The battle skills are impressive, but it's a pity that the people who use them are still a little too weak. They're like 2 ants. Even though they can lift things that are heavier than themselves, they're still too weak in the end. How can they threaten a colossal beast? Jianqin said. His indifferent voice was filled with disdain, but heavy killing intent flashed through his eyes. Suddenly, the startling rainbow sword shone brightly as an extremely powerful sword intent radiated from Jianqin. The startling rainbow sword in his hand stabbed out as a blur. The sword seemed to be able to destroy all laws and sever the rules. This sword condensed the truth of the world and carried a trace of the great path, causing this simple sword to contain a power that could destroy the world. The expressions of the 2 early over-gods from the Earth Spirit sect changed. They stared at Jianqin in shock. They understood Jianqin's strength very well, but they had never thought that he would be so powerful. Just a single strike was enough to make them feel life-threatening danger. At the same time, they felt like they had fallen into hell. The 2 protectors were shocked. They found it very hard to believe. They knew that Jianqin was not weak. Even their junior, Weiner Yen, had been defeated by him. However, with their strength, they could last for a while even if they were not the opponent of late over-gods when they worked together. However, let alone last for a while, they probably would not even be able to receive a single strike from Jianqin's strike. Oh no! The expressions of the two late over-gods from the Earth Spirit sect both changed. They felt a great sense of danger from Genshin's strike. It was impossible for their two early over-gods to block it. The two late over-gods immediately struck out. They charged towards Genshin as quickly as they could, wanting to block Genshin's strike for their junior. However, how could Genshin let them do as they wished? The protectors had arrived aggressively and even spoke rudely, telling him to kneel and receive them. How could Genshin let them off so easily after humiliating him like that? Moreover, he probably would not be able to avoid a battle with the protectors today. Since they were going to fight, he wanted to use this opportunity to heavily injure them and reduce their strength. Boom! As soon as the two strands of sword chi from the two early over-gods came in contact with Genshin, the strands of sword chi were as fragile as tofu. They directly exploded in the air and produced a great sound. The great sound wave formed a visible sound wave, causing the great city walls of the provincial city to shake gently. The light of formations appeared. However, Genshin's startling rainbow sword did not slow down at all. It shone with dazzling white light and directly cleaved the shockwave of sword chi in half. He swung it towards the necks of the two protectors mercilessly. The strike was extremely fast, arriving in a single instance. The two late over-gods wanted to save them, but it was already too late. Stop! Genshin, if you dare to harm Junior 2 and Junior Lei, we'll definitely teach you a lesson today. We'll erase your Tianyuan family from the Dong and province, a late over-god called out threateningly. Patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, if you dare to harm even a single hair on Junior 2 and Lei, we'll wipe out your Tianyuan family today. Not a single soul will be spared, the other late over-god said as well. He was filled with killing intent. Even though Genshin had displayed extraordinary strength, they still did not take Genshin seriously. After all, they came from the Earth Spirit sect of the Heavenly Moon Empire. They came from a large sect, so they possessed a natural sense of superiority. They naturally felt like they were superior when they came to a remote place like the divine kingdom of Pingtian, as if they were the masters of the world. However, Genshin did not stop when he heard their threats. Instead, a vicious light flickered through his eyes as killing intent surged. Originally, he only wanted to teach them a small lesson so that they would lose their battle prowess, but now he had decided to teach them a painful and unforgettable lesson. The startling rainbow sword turned into a streak of white light and swung out rapidly. It directly swept towards the necks of the two early over-gods from the Earth Spirit sect, passing through their necks without any resistance at all. Immediately, blood spurted out from their necks like a fountain. The two early over-gods' heads had already been separated from their bodies. Their heads were blown high into the air by the spray of blood. They continued to spin as they fell. Their eyes were filled with shock and fear. In just a single clash, Genshin had completely crushed them, forcefully blowing up the heads of the two early over-gods. Not only did the 5 protectors of the Earth Spirit sect become dumbfounded by this sight, but even all the people who saw this in the Dong and province were shocked as well. They were all stunned. Do you see that white-robed young man? He's the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan, Genshin. Heavens, the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan is just too powerful. He chopped off the heads of 2 early over-gods without any effort at all. The patriarch of the Tianyuan clan is actually so powerful. Early over-gods are basically no different from ants in his eyes. Just what level has his strength reached? Has he broken through and reached the level of the Divine King? Even if the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan hasn't reached the level of the Divine King, he can probably make it onto the Over-God's plaque with ease with his strength. After a moment of silence, a great uproar suddenly erupted in the Dong and province. Genshin had chopped off the heads of the 2 over-gods with lightning speed, making all the people who saw this extremely excited. Ever since the Tianyuan family was founded, they had always supported the weak and eliminated the strong. At the same time, no one in the clan dared to take advantage of the weak. As a result, The Tianyuan family was very popular in the Dong and province. They were loved by many people, completely different from the Mo family of the Divine Kingdom of Qingyang. Chapter 1906. Senior Brother Gong, Senior Brother Wu. Save us! Save us! The two beheaded protectors pleaded for help in fright. Of course, they were unable to speak now that their heads had been separated from their bodies. They were unable to produce any sounds at all. They could only send out mental pulses through their souls. As long as their souls remained, they would not die even if their bodies were reduced to pieces. As a result, the two of them were still alive after their heads had been separated from their bodies. Of course, their current situation was not optimistic at all. After Genshin's startling rainbow sword had cut off their heads, a tiny strand of sword chi had remained. It had split into two. One remained in their bodies while the other directly entered their heads. However, Genshin did not go overboard. The strand of sword chi in their heads was not powerful, so the two protectors could fend it off with the power of their souls. As a result, they would not lose their lives and have their souls wiped out by the sword chi. However, it would consume an extremely tremendous amount of power from their souls. The two late over-gods, known as Senior Gong and Senior Wu, arrived before the two heads with sunken faces. They each protected their heads and pressed them gently against their bodies. At the same time, they took out a bottle of pills from their space rings and crushed a pill to powder. They directly rubbed it gently on the wounds on their necks. Immediately, the wounds on the two early over-gods' necks began to heal at a visible rate. The severed heads reconnected with their bodies very soon. During this time, the other three mid-over-gods stared at Genshin cautiously as well. They were afraid that Genshin would suddenly attack and stop them from saving them. However, Genshin did not plan on killing them. Not only did he not stop them, but he even retreated with his sword. He stared at them coldly and emotionlessly. Fortunately, we saved you in time, so your bodies did not suffer any further damage. Otherwise, it would not have been so easy to reconnect your heads to your bodies, a late over-god said in relief. A late over-god from the Earth Spirit sect said in joy. When he glanced at Genshin, cold light flickered through his eyes. They were filled with heavy killing intent. Thank you, Senior Gong and Senior Wu, for saving our lives. If it were not for you, we probably would have died to Genshin's hands already, the two protectors said weakly. The two protectors, who thought they were lucky enough to survive, said weakly. Their bodies trembled slightly, and their faces were frighteningly pale. Their facial muscles twitched abnormally, and they seemed to be in great pain. In their bodies, a pure sword chi was rampaging about, destroying their vitality, shattering their internal organs, and severing their meridians. At the same time, there was a weak strand of sword chi in their heads. If they did not block it with their full strength, it could wipe out their souls at any time. The two of them immediately sat down cross-legged, doing their best to suppress the two strands of sword chi that were wreaking havoc in their bodies. How dare you kill the protectors of the Earth Spirit sect, Genshin? You're far too bold. It looks like you have no idea what kind of existence our Earth Spirit sect is, one of the 7 protectors said. A woman among the 7 protectors of the Earth Spirit sect said. Her clear voice was filled with coldness, and her eyes were frosty. Afterwards, she looked at the two late over-gods and said, Senior Gong, Senior Wu, the people of the Tianyuan family have committed a heinous crime by killing the protectors of our Earth Spirit sect. They cannot be forgiven. I think there really is no need for the Tianyuan family to exist. The two of them nodded emotionlessly. Senior Gong said indifferently, Since Junior and thinks there's no need for the Tianyuan family to exist, let's destroy the Tianyuan family. The Tianyuan family has suppressed Junior Yen for so long, so it's time for them to pay the price. This Genshin does have some ability. It'll probably take some time to kill him if we fight him alone. Whatever. Protector Gong and I will deal with him together. The 3 of you are responsible for dealing with the other people from the Tianyuan family. However, Do not destroy the provincial city. This is Junior Yan's territory after all, said Senior Wu. He looked in the direction of the Wainer clan, and he smiled faintly. Junior Yan's talent really is great. He's about to break through to mid-over-god. Let's move quickly. Once Junior Yan emerges, we'll give the head of the patriarch of the Tianyuan clan to Junior Yan as a gift. The protectors of the Earth Spirit sect discussed among themselves. With just a few words, they sentenced the Tianyuan family to death. They did not treat Jianqin seriously at all. Killing intent rose up in Jianqin's heart when he heard their conversation. He said coldly, "Everyone, I've already shown mercy earlier and did not take their lives. If you still don't know what's good for you, then don't blame me for being merciless." The two late over-gods of the Earth Spirit sect laughed. Protector Gong sneered, "Just you? You're just an over-god of a divine kingdom. You're just a commoner, yet you dare to speak to us like that without any shame? Let me see just what you're capable of." With that, a powerful pulse of energy radiated from Protector Gong like a tidal wave. At that moment, Protector Gong's presence surged into the sky. It was extremely shocking. He formed a seal with his hands, and a blazing flame rose from his body, giving off a terrifyingly high temperature. Strands of divine fire laws intertwined, gathering around his body. The flames burned brighter and brighter. In the blink of an eye, they went from red to golden yellow. Terrifying energy shook up the surroundings, causing the ground to sink. Even the lofty walls of the provincial city trembled. Seal of scarlet flames. Protector Gong bellowed out. He seemed to have become the sun in the sky, shining with dazzling light. He charged towards Jianqin like he was unstoppable. The terrifying heat was like a furnace of the world, causing the space there to distort. He used a powerful battle skill right from the start, using his full strength without holding back at all. He wanted to end the battle quickly so that he could show the might of the Earth Spirit sect. At the same time, Protector Wu moved as well. He wielded a huge, two-handed sword that shone with a golden light. He also used a powerful battle skill. The laws of metal revolved around the huge sword as he directly swung it out. The strike contained all the power of laws and energy that had accumulated on the huge sword. The power of laws that belonged to late over-gods fused with the surging origin energy, forming a thin, golden thread. The energy within the thread was compressed through a special method through the battle skill. So the energy within the golden thread was so great that it was enough to cause the expressions of many late over-gods to change. The two protectors both knew the powerful battle skills of the Earth Spirit sect. Neither of them were weaker than Yang Kai, so there were very few late over-gods who were their opponents. Dalio sword. Jianqin formed a seal with his hand, and a golden strand of sword qi condensed above his head. It shot towards Protector Wu with shocking speed. At the same time, he bellowed out at the sky. His hair fluttered without any wind as battle intent surged. The startling rainbow sword shone brightly as the power of the laws of the sword revolved around him. He seemed to have fused with his sword, shooting towards Protector Gong aggressively as a streak of light. Jianqin moved extremely quickly, shooting through the air like a streak of light. All the origin energy that stood in his way was shattered. As the three of them struck out, the two mid-over-gods directly charged into the provincial city of the Dong and province. Cold killing intent shone from their eyes as they made their way towards the Tianyuan family. The last mid-over-god stood in front of the two people whose heads had just been reattached. P.S. I'm going to rest early tonight. I'll shut myself up in a dark room tomorrow and write as much as I can. Also, you can pay attention to Xiaoyao's reputation. Search Xinqing Xiaoyao 110.